Happy Friday! Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Hopefully all of you are successfully navigating your way through a post-Halloween sugar hangover as you took your dad tax, your mom tax, your legal guardian tax from whatever candy the children collected last night. I do want to say, trick-or-treaters, they were my neighborhood gets no trick-or-treaters. We had to end up in a different neighborhood. We had to, what would you call that? We had to venture out in order to find the right neighborhood to trick-or-treat in. But the kids were out, man. The kids are all right. All of this concern that you don't do things the way you used to, for me at least, overblown, because there were massive groups of kids wandering around doing the Halloween thing the way that we used to.
Sounds like the sugar tax was a little rough on your voice last night.
It was me screaming at all the kids to get off my lawn.
Hey,
it's past 9:30. Why are you knocking on the door?
Use the stepping stones. Don't touch the grass.
Yes, exactly.
By the way, my wife, super creative. She made these homemade witches to put out on our front lawn, and we're both super thrilled, but she is even more thrilled than I that a lot of people just organically was like, let's take a picture in front of these cute witches.
Oh, wow.
So she felt super flattered by all that.
That's a major feather in the cap.
Yeah, shout out
wife.
to her. Yeah.
Shout out to your wife, because look, we've all seen the level of Halloween decoration that is out there now.
Yeah.
And to have a picture-worthy set of witches, that's really something.
Yeah.
And what are these things like? What do they look like? What were they constructed of?
Yeah, so they're homemade witches. They're just like a mannequin, one of those foam mannequin heads that you can buy.
Okay, creepy. Already a creepy start.
And then originally they're just put it on top of a hot dog stick, but we've upgraded to something a little more heavy duty. That's the body, okay, and then
you've been workshopping these. All right,
but bunch of tool and tarp, I guess is what you'd call it. That's the black tool and tarp that's make it actually look like a witch, and then some cheap witches hats that she pinned to the mannequin head, and boom. I'll have to show you a picture.
So these things
they're
like,
pretty cool.
They're like standing up in the yard. They're hanging from the tree. What are they doing?
They're standing up and they're holding hands. So it's like a cute little witch family.
Oh, okay.
So
wow.
Not scary witches at all. Faceless. So
okay.
I guess that could be a
little
creepy.
Scary.
I guess that could be a little creepy. But yeah,
faceless mannequin head witches don't sound less creepy to me. But all right.
No, but anyway, she was thrilled. We sat out on the porch for about an hour or so and handed out the rest of our candy, and a ton of moms were like, let's take a picture in front of these cute witches, and kids like, can I get a picture in front of the witches? So my wife's super thrilled with all that, and yeah, great night at the Peterson house for Halloween.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, my oldest daughter had a lot of fun trick-or-treating, got a bunch of candy. The middle child was when you're trying to run, you and I, you might know, I don't want to assume anything. When you try to run in a dress that has like a lot of train to it, a lot of fluff to it, the risk of stepping on said dress and face planting yourself is very high. We saw that several times with our trick-or-treating party last night. So the middle child, who's turning 3 next week, she did that, and it kind of ruined the trick-or-treating experience for her. So then I spent the rest of the night carrying her on my shoulders while I had the baby in like the little chest pack. You know?
Okay.
So
they were double teaming you the rest of the night.
I was pulling double duty, Master Blaster style with the middle child, and then the baby was kind of like Krang from the Ninja Turtles, just like, yeah, in the middle, like yelling at people. It was great.
That's amazing.
But yeah, that's
I absolutely know that from personal experience too, OC.
Yes.
I
you got to gather the dress around you got to gather your bustle when you try to hustle.
I did okay, I got to ask this. is powder puff football a thing up here?
Yeah.
Okay, because my wife.
Well, you think St. George just invented powder puff football?
No, my wife's family. So there's pictures of me as a powder puff cheerleader on the interwebs.
Okay.
My wife's
scary.
family was like, "What's this?" And I'm like, "It's powder puff football. What do you mean?" Like the girls play football, we cheer, and they acted like they'd never heard of it. So I have been in a cheer uniform, but I've not tripped over a dress before.
I do not want to see that ever. Those pictures need to be scrubbed from the internet. I don't want to see cheerleader James. All right, we got a fun show.
Everyone's looking him up now.
We'll send you into the weekend with at 1:30 our airing of grievances. So if you have any Halloween grievances, feel free to send them our way. You can text me at 877-353-0700. We will open up the phone lines, and we will focus on your grievances at 1:30 on the show today. Coming up in about 25 minutes, Bill Riley, voice of the Utes, joins us to have a little bye-week discussion as some news broke this morning about Utah's quarterback situation. I'll get to that here in just a second. Gordy Chiesa got bumped yesterday by the Utah coaches and players that came in, so we'll have an NBA conversation with Gordy Chiesa, Alex Markham, Lee Sterling to talk some picks for the weekend. We'll have a little bit of fun. That breaking news came courtesy of the competition across the street, so I'll give them a shout out, but I'll also wag my finger at them like, yeah, you're not cool. Well, we don't actually listen to you. We don't like you. All right. I was listening to Dan Patrick this morning, as all of you should be doing, but I'm also active on Twitter and social media. So I saw that Kyle Whittingham joined the morning show over there across the street and informed everybody that another season-ending surgery took place. Sam Heward is not part of the quarterback discussion at the University of Utah because he sustained an injury and he had season-ending surgery. Now, this is – look, he didn't play. He didn't play for Utah. As a young recruit, he was a 5-star. He was one of the most sought-after quarterbacks in the country. And then it didn't really work out at Washington, as we know. And then he had mediocre numbers at Cal Poly, which is a FCS school, a 1AA school. And then he was the guy that you were able to get in the transfer portal who had collegiate experience, who had started games to back up Cam Rising if it came down to that. Now, it did come down to that. And unfortunately, Heward had not separated himself from the other backup competition, and so we never got to see what he was capable of. And the reason we're talking about Sam Heward in a bye week on a Friday is because people were like, hey, the situation is so desperate in the quarterback room at the University of Utah that a lot of fans, a lot of folks are out there saying, why don't you play Sam Heward? Where is Sam Heward? What has this guy done in practice? And by the way, I don't have any details on when this surgery actually happened, but I do know that Heward hasn't even been part of the past couple of road trips. So it's not like he was in the discussion. Now, maybe the injury was sustained earlier, and he that is what took him out of that discussion. But Sam Heward, like, he wasn't on the road in Arizona, at Arizona State. He wasn't on the road when you sustained 2 of these 4 losses. He just, like, he was the scout team quarterback this year that ended up not being a factor. And the fact that there's hand-wringing over what a 4th-string quarterback is doing really kind of indicates how dire the circumstances are in the quarterback room at the University of Utah.
Yeah, it's indicative of the kind of season that Utah's having. If they're winning, if they didn't go winless in October, no one's caring that much about the 4th-string quarterback. Regardless of whether Cam's healthy or not, take that out of the equation. You're not caring that much about a 3rd string at that point.
I mean, that's really
injured.
Anyone beyond 2nd string at any position, and certainly at the quarterback position, probably doesn't garner a mention on the home of the Utes or on any other radio station, right? I mean, Bill Riley's going to join us here in 20 minutes or so, And I'll ask Bill, how many times in your 20-year tenure as the voice of this exact program, how many times did you even mention in season a third or fourth string quarterback? It's just not normal. That's an illustration of how wild this season has gotten for the University of Utah. So there's your update on why Sam Heward is not in the discussion for this starting role against BYU.
It opens it up for the Ferrari Luke Batari to be bandied about.
Luke Batari
as a potential starter.
Luke Batari has never given us any reason to think he can't play. All right.
Yeah, he was solid for them, and he got him a win last year in the one game that he started.
So, I mean, I know people kind of do the tongue-in-cheek thing, saying, he was a really good junior college quarterback. That comes with a certain stigma for fans that I think is, really unfortunate. It's pretty inappropriate, where people are just like, junior college guys, we've seen these before, like John Hayes and those guys. Utah has been the beneficiaries of some good junior college transfer play. The junior college thing in the modern era of the transfer portal has, it's just disappeared at the Power 5 level.
It almost feels completely unnecessary.
JUCO guys now are academic non-qualifiers. That's what they are.
Yeah.
And that's always been the case, but now that you can go out and you can shop in a transfer portal for somebody who's already been on a Power 4 field, a Power 5, I guess, last year field, somebody who started and excelled at a lower level, the junior college level is now like 4 tiers down.
Yeah.
And I don't think that has anything to do with why people why Luke Batari is in the position he's in on the depth chart. Like, this coaching staff doesn't care where you come from as long as you can play.
Oh, they'll give you an opportunity if they feel like you're better than the other 3 guys ahead of you, for sure.
I mean, last night,
or you're in a better position to be successful anyway.
Last night the Jets got a big dub finally, right? And Aaron Rodgers is the center of so much conversation in the NFL universe. I don't know why anymore. I think washed, as we talked about with Eric Weddle yesterday, is probably too strong of a term, but like hanging on too long, as the Utah football legend pointed out, might be the case for somebody like Aaron Rodgers. And they eked one out against Houston, and Aaron Rodgers post-game talked about how that probably saved the season, or at least gave them an opportunity to save the season. And we'll see if this can be a fulcrum, if this can be a turning point for the Jets as they move forward. I don't really care, but the NFL does. And Aaron Rodgers is a guy who is either the best, second best, or third best quarterback of his generation in the NFL. He's probably not the best. That's Tom Brady. But he's either the second or third best of his generation in the NFL, and he spent some time on a junior college football roster.
Yeah.
So,
was it Butte College?
Butte College.
That's
right.
That's what he claims on Sunday Night Football every week. Aaron Rodgers, Butte.
I always love when guys do the thing where they throw out like their high school, or they throw out the JUCO, or they throw out something like that, because it makes the fan base of whatever school gets omitted feel very strongly one way or another.
Yeah, Zachariah is pissed every time.
I remember
when he doesn't
Brett
mention
Kiesel. You remember
Cal.
when Brett Kiesel?
Yes. Yeah.
Would not say BYU anymore?
Yeah.
And people freaked out. And I think he finally was asked about it. And he was just like, "Oh no, I just want to give my high school some love."
Yeah, it's just
it's not because I have disdain for BYU or anything, but and that's just an example that applies locally. You see it with so many other teams.
I kind of like it because it breaks up the monotony a little bit. It's like, oh, you hear well-known college after well-known college, and then you hear whatever high school, and you're like, oh, that's kind of interesting. That's cool.
I would like for people to go all the way back to their Pop Warner days.
Yes.
Go all the way back to Granger Lancers Pee-wees.
Yeah. St. George Recreation Center flag football.
Oh, that would be the best. If you went back to your first venture into football, your flag football days, let's see. I remember my very first flag football experience when we moved to Utah. For whatever reason, Sandy City Recreation. I don't know why you did this. I hope it's different now. We had shirts. You know, that's your team. You're like the color of your shirt is what your team is.
Yeah.
They were peach. They weren't pink. They weren't orange. They were peach. Now, I have been to thousands upon thousands of retail stores. You know how many times I've seen a peach shirt? Not very often.
No,
it's like they got the most obscure of all shirt flavors.
They were trying to stand out.
They gave us that. So I was on like the Peach Panthers or something stupid. If I was in the NFL, would I have shouted that out? Probably. Just to try and be unique.
It's too bad the PFL or UFC didn't have that. You couldn't be like Peach Panthers.
I would love Peach Panthers flag football. Like, 3rd grade.
Did that fighter just shout out his flag football team?
What does he mean, Peach Panthers? 2023 Luke Pittari, 1-0 as a starter on 6 of 10 passing for 61 yards. But he also rushed for 2 touchdowns on 5 carries. So
he ran it well. They did not let him throw very much, but he ran it well. 60% completion.
So as you end up with a quarterback battle in this bye week, you have 8 days, by the way, the countdown clock. It's not a countdown to kickoff, which we did all summer long. You have 8 days until BYU rolls into Rice-Eccles Stadium, and there's a reckoning. You have to either have a solution or you don't have one, and this season is just obliterated.
And as you've talked about on this show, OC, and we've talked a bit about it together, it feels like there could be negative ramifications beyond this season if they're not able to salvage some kind of success this last month of the season, obviously most importantly in the rivalry game.
Okay, I want to ask an important question here. And I'll put it on a poll also, but I want to know what people think. Kyle Whittingham has made it clear he's not going to be around for much longer. Do you think it's more likely that he comes back for another year if this team just, what's the bed the rest of the way? Or is it, I'm throwing my hands up and I'm done and the game has passed me by, which we know is not true. And, this is too exhausting. That's a better way to put it. This is too much. I don't want to do this anymore. If you have a worst-case scenario, 4-8, 5-7, don't make a bowl game season, does that make it more or less likely that Kyle Whittingham walks away?
I mean, the easy answer feels like it's more likely he walks away, but
I feel like it's the opposite.
Do you think it's less?
And it's probably irresponsible on the home of the Utes to speculate on the future of a guy who is the best coach in the history of the school that has had some really great coaches. But Kyle Whittingham feels to me like a guy who doesn't throw his hands up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a good point. And
I would love to get Kyle call him right now, James, get him on the line. I'm not even going to ask him a football question. I'm just going to say in general in life, Coach, how many times have you just thrown your hands up and be like, I'm not doing it anymore. It's too hard. I'm done. I think the answer is probably 0 for Kyle Whittingham.
Yeah.
So I think it might be less likely that he walks away if this season comes down to a garbage finish. If
no bowl game.
We'll
say no bowl game.
That'll be the threshold for me. If I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to type this poll question up. This is bad live radio. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay. And by the way, I have excellent typist skills. I always keep my fingers on the home row keys. All right. I was really good with the Guam. You remember when you were doing your gross words a minute?
Oh, yeah.
Back in your typing class?
Oh, yeah. Were you
blazing,
you
man.
Were one of those 90 something.
I was embellishing the numbers, going
I was about half that.
Typing really small words to make sure that I could get more words per minute. I gamed the system a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
How's bragging camp going, by the way?
I'm the best at it. Okay. If Utah football finishes poorly and misses a bowl game, is it more or less likely that Kyle Whittingham walks away at the end of this season? I think less likely. And I don't know where the turning point would have to be. If you lose to BYU, I have told you, and I still feel this way, if you lose to BYU and that makes it 5 in a row, I don't think you salvage the season at all. I think the team at that point has an impossible time.
You think they lose out? Probably.
I don't know about lose out because UCF is not great.
Yeah, see,
right?
I keep going. They could lose out, but then I go, but have you seen UCF lately?
But you know what? Houston stunk.
We said that about Houston.
TCU's not that good. Houston stunk out loud until they played Utah.
Yeah.
All right. So UCF is not a great team. Colorado's still not a great team, right?
No. But
BYU is a really good team, and Iowa State's a really good team right now, and the record indicates that. And look, you are who your record says you are, especially this deep into a college football season. And maybe it's not just a loss to BYU. If you lose on a last-second field goal to BYU and you compete your ass off and you found something of that Utah football identity, even though there's no moral victories and even though losing to this BYU team would not feel good, even if it's a close game.
Probably keep the team motivated the rest of the year, though, right?
Yeah, you probably can then go into the film session and say, look at what we're capable of, guys. That was a top 10 team. You took them down to the wire. Let's do this again, right? Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Let's get these flashy Colorado pukes and get them out of here.
But if they're not competitive against the Cougs.
And we're talking about the worst case scenario. I still am a believer in this coaching staff, and I'm still a believer that this team is talented, which means I still have to be a believer that it's a possibility you pull off an upset next Saturday, right? But if you don't, and that is what Kyle Whittingham has to hang his hat on as the final season of his glorious and illustrious tenure, I just don't think he leaves, man.
Yeah.
He's such a competitive individual.
I think you're convincing me because and I absolutely was saying that I don't think Kyle Whittingham's very competitive when I said that before. No, just kidding. It was not about his competitiveness that made me go, it feels like it's more likely that he retires if they don't make a bowl game this year. But I think you're convincing me because it goes against everything we know about Kyle Whittingham, and that competitiveness really is the biggest factor in this, probably.
So here's the other thing. In the old era of college football, Kyle Whittingham could say, another bad injury year. I take a mulligan on that one, and next year we're going to be better. Because you know what your final game of the year, in this case, in this scenario, was Black Friday, is that UCF game. So you wake up on December 1st, and you get to that signing period. You get to, hey, we got a good recruiting class coming in still. We're going to be just fine, and next year we're going to be better. That's the old era of college football. In the modern era of college football, you're going to wake up on December 1st, and if in this doomsday scenario where I'm describing, you've missed a bowl game, you have no idea what your roster is going to look like in spring, and you have no idea what your roster is going to look like next fall. So if you're trying to make a decision for yourself as a head coach or as a player or as an assistant coach or whatever, you're looking at what you think the landscape is, and you're making an educated guess, but it's not as educated as it used to be. You're going like, yeah, I think I can salvage this thing next year. I think we gave Isaac Wilson enough reps this year, and I think we're going to keep him around, and I think that, he got all the freshman mistakes out of his system, so next year he's our guy. But you don't really know. I think that Lander Barton, even though he's draft eligible, didn't play well enough this year and is probably just going to stick around because instead of being a first or second round draft pick, the tape says this year that he's a fifth or sixth round draft pick, and that might not be enough for him to want to go. But maybe it still is because his experience this year was less than satisfying. I have no idea, right? And if I have no idea, Kyle Whittingham only has I don't know, double the idea that I have, because
Yeah.
the uncertainty is just so strong in this era of college football. So I'm putting the poll question out. If Utah finishes poorly and misses a bowl game, does that make it more or less likely in your mind as a fan that Kyle Whittingham calls it a day and walks away? We are, by the way, 8 days away, I think, from the most important moment in this decision-making process. If you're telling me that Kyle Whittingham throws his hands up after a 5-7 season where he also loses to BYU, I'm like, there's no way that's happening. He is not going to let that be the last taste in the mouth of Utah football fans. That's what I'm thinking. But I don't know.
Yeah. And as far as to what you were saying earlier, it feels irresponsible to speculate about this. He did all but tell us he's going to be gone in the next 3 years at media day. So it's not crazy to irresponsible to be talking about when this season may be one of them. We're gonna be doing that the next couple of years.
By the way,
too.
If you're expecting me to be a responsible broadcaster or radio host, I got something to tell you. Not really my thing.
Not really my thing.
Sorry, guys. I'm bad at the job. All right. We'll take
Taking
a quick
notes.
one here. Bill Riley, the voice of the Utes, joins us for a little bye-week discussion. We have more details. There's no Sam Hewitt as a possibility, so it's Brandon Rose, it's Isaac Wilson. Which of those two guys does Bill think starts the BYU game? We'll find out next on the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700.
11th play of the drive. It's taken 6 minutes off the clock. Rodgers in the pocket, deep drop, he throws. Wow. It's snagged by Wilson, and he's going to take it in for the touchdown. Aaron Rodgers throwing to the left. Took a shot on the play. And Wilson does the rest for 21 yards. The Jets an extra point away from tying this one up on Halloween night.
That catch from Garrett Wilson was scary good. Get it? Halloween, scary.
I love that I'm rubbing off on you, OC.
I'm actually very ashamed that dad joke came out of my mouth. One-handed touchdown catch in last night's Jets win. That was Thursday Night Football. You could hear right on ESPN 700 and 92.1. Westwood won. Thanks to them for giving us the sound. Ian Eagle on the call. Great call from Ian Eagle. Play-by-play in football, as you know. An art. And a man who has mastered the art is my next guest. Bill Riley, voice of your Utes, stops by on a Friday. Bill, how are you?
Sean, I'm good. Got 25 points from Garrett Wilson last night in fantasy football. So
not bad.
I enjoyed that catch.
Not bad. You'd love to hear it. How much does your schedule change in a bye week, Bill? You don't have to travel. You don't have to, I guess, do the same level of meetings. How much more free time is a bye week?
I got more meetings, but no travel, no games to broadcast this week. But I've got 2 basketball games and a football game that you might have heard of, the rivalry game next week. So kind of gearing up for that. And gymnastics is just around the corner, so gearing up for that. I got all these Olympic sports we're dealing with up here at the U as well. So yeah, it's a bye week, no broadcast per se this week, but lots of other little things to keep me busy.
All right. Well, as you're getting that brief reprieve as the voice of the Utes, there is a lot to consider with this team as they head into rivalry week. Oof. And rivalry week is my favorite of every season. I'm not going to say it's different now just because Utah's having their struggles, but it sounds like there's a real quarterback battle happening again. Kyle Whittingham at media availability said they're going to get equal reps. They being Isaac Wilson and Brandon Rose are going to get equal reps until he sees some separation. And that's what we heard week after week after week in fall camp as well. Is there a real quarterback battle happening in the bye week?
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, I'm hearing the same things you are. I emceed a Crimson Club luncheon the other day. Kyle said the same thing there, that those guys are competing this week. It's the last thing you want to be is going into your 9th game of the season and having a quarterback competition, but that's kind of where Utah finds itself, and they don't really have any other choice right now. Isaac's a freshman. You heard Kyle say he's been a little dinged up this year, battling through it, doing his best, but, hasn't gotten the results the last few weeks. Rose had some moments the other day in the Houston game until obviously the end where he threw the pick. So, he throws a pretty ball. He's probably got the biggest arm on the staff, and he's been in the program longer too. He's 3 years in. He should know that offense inside and out. So I think they're just trying to find anything, Sean, that could give that offense a spark. The defense has been good. Hasn't been great, but it's certainly been good and been good enough to win most of these games. They have to find a way to give a spark for that offense.
Going back to that Houston game, I mean, there were a couple drops. Rose was the victim of a couple of mistakes from his teammates. He made his own mistakes, as you already alluded to. But I think it was so tantalizing for a lot of us watching the game because it's like, is this the spark happening? That ball comes out of his hand, like you said, with such velocity and usually with accuracy. And then, of course, you need everyone else to play well, too. You need your offensive line to protect you, and you need the guys at the other end of that pass to catch the pass. And was it enough of a sample size to say one way or another that the spark could have been there?
Maybe. You're right. And I've said this all along to your point. Whether it was Cam Rising or Isaac Wilson or Brandon Rose, some of the other guys got to help these guys out. These wide receivers and tight ends and running backs, you can't. I mean, there's no margin for error right now. Cam Rising, when he was healthy, I mean, and this, it doesn't matter whether it's Cam Rising or it's Patrick Mahomes or whoever it might be, a good quarterback, a really good, great quarterback can cover up some of your misgivings and mistakes and things like that. But when you've got an inexperienced or not quite as good a quarterback, they're not going to cover those things up. If Cam Rising hits somebody down the seam and they drop it, okay. He's probably going to come back and find that next. But a guy like Isaac Wilson or Brandon Rose, they may not have that same ability to come back that next snap and do it yet. So these wide receivers and tight ends and backs, whoever the quarterback is against BYU in 8 days, they can't afford dropping passes on third downs or second downs or letting big plays go awry. That margin for error is not there. So, yeah, one of those guys has to step up and assume that role at quarterback. But the surrounding cast has to help out too.
We got bad news also from Kyle Whittingham at media availability, season-ending injury for Money Parks. And I know that he hasn't been wildly productive because nobody has in the passing game this year, but really some nice moments, some good sparks, and obviously he's had a great career at the University of Utah. How big a loss is Money Parks for the rest of this season as you try to get things going?
Well, it's a loss. I mean, he wasn't – I mean, he was probably the second most productive wide receiver behind – well, he is the second most productive wide receiver behind Dorian Singer, and probably the third most productive in the pass game with Keithy being right there too. It's a loss, and he's experienced. He knows the program. He's also – one of the real burners on that team that can get some separation when need be. So I think it's a loss. Are there other guys that can step up? Sure. Maybe the Zipperer kid who's a freshman can step up. Maybe Micah Pittman, who's really not made much of an impact on Utah football in his 2 years here. Maybe he can get a few more snaps. They talked about, his name. The guy's name is escaping me right now. Munir McClain. We didn't really see him until the last game this year. They were wanting to redshirt Damian Alford, who I thought was going to have a big part of this. Maybe they have to rethink that, or at least get him some spot experience here and there so he doesn't play the 4 games. There's some guys there, but none of those guys have really emerged yet, and Money had. So, yeah, I'm with you, Sean. I think it's a loss.
Bill Riley, voice of the Utes, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking about Utah's problems in the bye week. Mike Bajakian took over what I think is an unenviable task of trying to replace Andy Ludwig, who was great in the role until he wasn't. And, he had to do it. We got the news Sunday night. Maybe Mike Bajakian had the news a little bit earlier than we did, but regardless, it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You get your walkthrough on Thursday. And that's pretty much all you got. I don't know how much of an impact you can really make or how many tweaks you can really make this deep into a season and with a short week. Obviously, a little bit more time to prepare now for BYU's defense, which is a lot better than the one you faced last week. But do you think we get a better performance, a significantly different performance from Mike Bajakian, the play caller, now that he's had a little bit more time in the role?
Maybe, but I think, Sean, it's all incumbent on the play of the quarterback. I mean, I really do. Mike Bajakian, and kind of like Andy Ludwig before him, you can call the best play in the world. You can have it dialed up. But when it gets to the field, it's not executed, it doesn't look like a great play. I think they go hand in hand. I really do. I think for Mike Bajakian to alter the course of the Utah offense with play calling and game plan, it's then got to be executed by a true freshman quarterback who's got 6 games under his belt, and a junior quarterback who's got 1 quarter of football under his belt. So that to me is the tough part for Bajakian is he's drawing up a game plan and trying to play to the strengths to guys that don't have a real track record yet of playing a lot, so you don't quite know what their real strengths are, if that makes sense.
All right, help me out with this because I've really had a hard time figuring out how I should be talking about the Utah defense and how I should be delivering messaging about their performance because they're the number 1 total defense in the Big 12 Conference. It seems a little bit unreasonable to ask a team to be better than that, but it's been 4 games since your defensive front has generated a sack for you. You gave up 230 yards rushing to Houston a week ago, and those are not like the standards set by Utah defense, by Morgan Scalley, by the history of this unit in this program. So I'm looking at it, Bill, and I'm pulled in two different directions. Well, they're the number one total defense, and they're top 5 in every meaningful defensive category, at least conference-wise. But they could be better, and we've seen them already this year be better than they have been in these 4 weeks during the losing streak. So how should we be assessing the defensive performance from Morgan Scalley's crew?
Honestly, I think they're a good defense. I do. I think it's a good defense. I don't think it's one of Morgan or Kyle's elite high-end defenses. But to be very fair, if I would have told you you're going to hold Arizona to 23 points and Tetairoa McMillan will not have a catch in the second half, do you like Utah's chances?
Absolutely, yeah.
If I told you you're going to hold TCU to 13 points, do you like Utah's chances?
Yeah, I do.
If I told you you were going to hold Houston to 17 points and 2 of their drives were going to come on short fields, do you like your chances?
And they're going to have a couple of goal line stands. Yeah, this is where the conflict comes from. Yeah,
but here's where I go. I think the defense is good, and I think the defense to this point, coaches will never say it publicly, but I think the defense, with maybe the exception of the Arizona State game where they kind of let Scatteraboo get loose in the second half, I think they've done enough for Utah to win just about every one, if not every one of these games. Now, that being said, Arizona State, TCU, and Houston, they're not good offensive football teams. Against good teams, they're not. Your real test for this defense comes in the month of November. BYU, Colorado, Iowa State, and UCF are all good offensive football teams. So I think this defense is done well enough. I do. I think Morgan's guys, again, they'll never say it publicly because they take that team stance. I think they've been good enough. Now, for Utah to win against the 4 teams they have to play in November, based on what we've seen so far from the offense, I think the defense is going to have to elevate a little bit more. I think they're going to have to force some turnovers. I think they're going to have to get some sacks, if that makes sense, because I just I don't see a world where the offense all of a sudden starts scoring 35 points a game. These are winnable games if the offense can put together some points and the defense can continue to play at a high level. Now, maybe not at an elite level, but at a high level. But I think to beat BYU, to beat Colorado, to beat UCF, to beat Iowa State, I think the defense is going to have to take it up. I think both sides, obviously. The offense has a lot more room, but I think the defense is going to have to probably go up just a little bit more too. But I do think they've been good. I do. I think they've been good. Maybe not by, Utah elite defensive standards, but I do think they've been good.
Bill Riley for another minute or two here on the Sean O'Connell Show. He is the voice of your Utes. I offered this question earlier in the week, so I'll pass it to you as well. As we look for offensive improvement under Mike Bajakian, in order for him to see the interim tag pulled off of that offensive coordinator title, how much does the scoring offense need to improve? If he gives you an extra touchdown a game, it feels like, that's because now you're in a point total area where you're winning these games instead of losing them. But what if it's just a field goal a game better? Like, how many more points does this offense need to generate for Kyle Whittingham, or I guess it could be Morgan Scalley, for whomever to be convinced that he is the answer for your play calling issues?
I don't even have close to an answer to that question. But to go back to what I think they're going to have to be better, more than better than a touchdown a game to win any one of these games. I don't think improving a touchdown a game is going to beat BYU, Colorado, Iowa State, or UCF. I mean, they scored 14 points last week. Now, Houston's defense wasn't bad, but they scored 14. They scored 7 at home against – 21 points going to beat BYU? Man, that's hard to say. I don't think it beats Colorado.
I don't think so.
Iowa State.
I think I'm operating off the average, and you're right. That's skewed by some of the early season performances.
Yeah.
The average output right now is 22 and a half.
If you're averaging in the overall season, what are they averaging? 22 a game?
Yeah, it's like 22.5 a game. So if you get near that 30 points.
If you scored 29 a game, you improve by a touchdown and the defense plays well, you're going to be in every one of those games.
Yeah.
But if you're scoring to the point where you've been during the losing, I guess I was talking more about the last 4 games, but I see what you're saying. But to your bigger picture question, I don't have a good answer to that because I just don't know. Mike was brought here basically as an analyst. I don't know if Kyle would look at that, and maybe if that offense improves a great deal and they win the 4 games, you give it a serious look. I don't know what the relationship is either between Kyle and Mike. So that question for me is just it's tough to answer.
What college football game this weekend has the bulk of your interest?
That's a good question. I've been so deep into basketball this week.
You got Penn State, Ohio State
on Monday. Penn State, Ohio State, a little bit. From entertainment purposes, Arkansas, Ole Miss could be fun. Ole Miss is generally fun to watch all the time. I think Oregon is going to put a number on Michigan this weekend. I'm sure your boy Jeff is loving that.
Yes.
Oh, going to the big house and doing that. I'll tell you a game, kind of a sneaky, interesting game for me to keep an eye on is Texas Tech, Iowa State. I have no idea how good Texas Tech is. Some days they look unbelievable, and then they get beat by 22 at home to Baylor. Yeah. I don't know. But I think Iowa State's really good, and, Jack Trice Stadium on a Saturday afternoon in early November, it's going to be a good atmosphere. So I'm just really curious because if Iowa State wins that, man, they've got the wind at their back at that point in time. They're cruising. So from a Big 12 standpoint, it's probably that game. From a national standpoint, I think the easy answer is probably Ohio State, Penn State. And I really liked Ohio State, but the last couple of weeks they've looked just okay. And Penn State, who I wasn't super high on, they got the offensive coordinator from Kansas. His name's Kolanacki. And all of a sudden, Penn State looks really good. That's a tough place to play, 100,000 people. So I'd probably keep an eye on that one Saturday morning.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Texas Tech Iowa State game because Texas Tech they're the highest scoring offense in the Big 12. So if they can get rolling, suddenly things get interesting for Iowa State. But Iowa State is the number 1 scoring defense in the Big 12 conference. So you got strength versus strength.
Texas Tech per usual. Defense optional on given Saturdays for Texas Tech. I mean, that's just kind of how it's been going back to like the Mike Leach days there.
Before I let you go, Bill, tell the folks about Advanced Window Products, one of the great partners of my show, your show, and everything Utah football's got going on.
Well, they're great guys. Nate Orchard and his crew over there, Nate and Jake and Dave and Janitha and all that crew over there, they're fantastic people. But on top of it, they're fantastic people that put out a great product. If you're looking at windows, and it's kind of gotten cold the last week or so, and maybe you've had to kick that heat on. If you've noticed some drafts in your house, maybe you've got some older windows and you've been thinking about replacing, do this. Just call Advanced Window Products up and have them come out and give you an estimate. Just see what it would cost to replace a few of those windows that might be drafty. Maybe you need a whole bunch of them. They'll knock up to $2,500 off if you get 10 windows or more. But the bottom line is they're going to produce a great product. They're going to take great care of you. It's all made and produced right here in Salt Lake City and in Utah. So you don't have to worry about it being farmed out to another country and it takes you 4 months to get your windows back. Nope, it's all done here. And it's 8 weeks from the time they measure it to the time they install it, maybe sooner, to get those windows. And again, support local companies because they do great jobs in our community. And I can speak firsthand experience. They've taken good care of me over the years too. So give Nate, give Jake, give Dave, give the whole crew over there my best. And if you're shopping for windows or window treatments like blinds or shutters, or maybe you need a new door, whatever it might happen to be, let them take good care of you at Advanced Window Products. And Sean, you got the phone number.
801-850-9100, $2,500 off, 10 windows or more. Tell them OC sent you. Tell them Bill sent you. Tell them we sent you from ESPN 700. Bill, thanks for your time. Enjoy the weekend.
See you next week, Sean.
Great stuff, as always, from the voice of the Utes. That Texas Tech Iowa State game is sneaky. It is a sneaky good game. Now, Iowa State, the favorite. Iowa State, the team that has everything to play for. But Texas Tech, if the good version of the Red Raiders shows up, that could get very, very interesting. You got some interesting games. Florida, Georgia, that that Ohio State-Penn State game
which I'm nervous about, OC. I texted you last week and saying this Ohio State, I haven't lost all faith in Ohio State, but I lost a lot of faith in Ohio State.
But what did I tell you? Nebraska will find a way to screw it up.
Yes, and they did. But as Buckeye fans, we have the privilege of looking ahead of the current game at maybe national championship chances on almost a yearly basis. So I'm thinking, with that in mind, they did not play like a team, especially offensively. And injuries are decimating that offensive line. So anyway, I would not be surprised if Penn State comes away with a win in that game. But yeah, I'm pretty nervous about that one.
All right, I've got a list of candidates for you in the hot lunch. All right, if Mike Bajakian does not see the interim tag removed from his offensive coordinator duties, you're going to have to find somebody to call plays for you next year, whether you're Morgan Scalley, whether you're Kyle Whittingham, whoever is the head man in this program. You're going to have to fill that offensive coordinator position. You're going to have to do it like this deal needs to be in place as soon as the regular season ends. These conversations already need to be happening. So I've got a short list in the hot lunch for guys I think would be the right phone calls to make. We'll get over that next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700. Hot Lunch is brought to you by our friends at Jersey Mike's. Jersey Mike's, a sub above. Everything fresh. And if you're ordering, maybe you're looking for a hot sandwich. It's getting cold, right? The cheesesteaks, grilled to order right there in front of you. Jersey Mike's, a sub above. I always get it with the juice. I have been going sub in a tub lately, as I mentioned. But it's okay. We're doing cozy weather now that it's cold. Wearing thicker shirts and whatnot, so you can put the carbs back in your life. It's fine.
Yeah, and like you said, try the hot subs. Now, I do like the Danny DeVito commercials they have now. Sliced right in front of you.
Is that your Danny DeVito?
Well, that's my best effort at it.
Okay, Gordy Chase is going to join us in about 5 minutes. We keep talking about Mike Bajakian on this show. I keep saying, well, is he the long-term solution? I'm a skeptic of that, not because I have any distrust personally with him, not because I dislike him in any way. He just, as we talked about with Bill, he came in to serve a different role than the one he's been given now. He was supposed to be an analyst who kind of like added an extra perspective, helped with communication from the booth to the sideline and dealing with players, and now he's being asked to call the offense, which he's done before. He has experience in doing, but he's never had like mega successful experience in doing that. So he's going to have to overperform, I think, in order to be elevated from interim offensive coordinator to permanent offensive coordinator. Now, with that in mind, I'm like, all right, well, if it's not going to be him, who's it going to be? And it seems pretty clear it's not going to be Jim Harding, or they would have elevated Jim Harding into the interim coordinator role. I don't think there's anyone on the staff right now besides Mike Bajakian who they're ready to hand those duties over to. So who else? And when I look at the who else, I'm looking at coaches that are in the Western United States for the most part. All right.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because there is you're likely to see guys that are willing to move, but unless you're Texas and West, your vision is probably to end up in the Big Ten or the SEC. And I don't want to see Utah hiring a guy who views this as a stepping stone opportunity. Now, if it's a stepping stone to a head coaching opportunity, sure.
Yeah, and you can't really do anything about that.
So, and most of the time, because of the pay scale that is going to continue to plague Utah now that they're in the Big 12 instead of the Big 10 and the SEC. Again, you don't want to be competing with those jobs necessarily. So here's what I came up with. It's a short list of guys who are currently, today, in 2024, producing big-time points, big-time offenses. Dirk Cutter is at Boise State. They're the number 3 ranked offense in the country. He's 65 years old. But I don't know if you can get him out of this to me feels like for Dirk Cutter, this Boise State job, he's been in the NFL. He's been around the NFL. This is like his golden parachute job. This is, I wanted to go back home to Idaho, and I wanted to settle down in a spot where I'm going to retire.
Second stint at Boise State, right?
Yeah. But I think Dirk Cutter is probably an outside chance. Also, do you want to hire a 65-year-old offensive coordinator? If you're Kyle Whittingham, that guy's older than you. If you're Morgan Scalley, right, and he ends up being the head coach, is that the type of coach now that translates most successfully in recruiting and things like that? I don't know. Maybe Dirk Cutter's phenomenal at that. Maybe he still has the energy and the enthusiasm for that, but it feels like less likely. But Dirk Cutter's doing a great job right now at Boise State. Brennan Marion, this is the one. This is like the real number one on my list. Brennan Marion's at UNLV right now, and they've got the number 5 scoring offense in all of college football at UNLV with inferior personnel, certainly inferior defensive competition as well to what Utah's facing. But even when he lost the starting quarterback, Matt Sluka, and he had to put in the Haj Malik guy, they haven't skipped a beat.
Yeah, they haven't skipped a beat.
So he went to his backup quarterback at UNLV, and they've been really good, and he makes $310,000 a year, which means that you could at least double his salary, offer him to come to Utah. Again, Western United States type of guy. It's a natural progression. It's a step up. I love the idea. Brennan Marion has great recruiting connections, in Southern California, in Vegas, at places like Bishop Gorman, already spots that you are recruiting pretty heavily. Brennan Marion would be, I think, the number one on my list.
The other thing that he has going for him is his initial starting quarterback, Matt Sluka, was a sub 50% completion percentage, and they were still putting up a bunch of points.
Yeah, so,
and two of those games against Power 4 opponents.
Now, he's a good dual threat quarterback, so they used his legs, but again,
But that's something.
Brennan Marion shows adaptability, and I love that, right? So he would be, I think, my number one choice. There's also Jordan Davis at North Texas. This one's tough because he's underpaid at North Texas. He's a Texas Tech guy, played and G8 and all that stuff at Texas Tech. Texas Tech is probably his destination school, probably a place where he wants to be. So when I say Western United States and I say Texas West, sometimes hard to pull those Texas boys out of Texas. All right?
Yeah, Texas forever, right?
But Jordan Davis is making $225,000 this year. You could pay him triple that to coordinate your offense at the University of Utah. Mac Leftwich is in a similar situation. He's at Texas State. How old do you think the offensive coordinator at Texas State in San Marcos, Texas is?
I haven't seen his age, but I've seen I've seen what he looks like. I'm going to say 33.
He's 29 years
29.
old, and he's entering his fifth season as the offensive coordinator. The dude's been doing it well for quite a while. He has coached 5 different All-Americans.
And he started like the same age as some of his seniors.
Correct.
On the team. That's wild.
And again, you know, because of where he's at, because of the fact that that's a group of 5 school, you can really offer a huge bump. And why do I bring that up? Because climbing the ladder is one thing. Climbing the ladder to a place where maybe you don't have any kind of history, maybe you don't have any family connections or whatever. Coaches are used to this, but these guys are all producing big-time offenses. They're all top 25 offenses in all of college football, all right? And they're doing it at the group of 5 level, and they're doing it with lesser personnel, lesser talent, for half the money they could get at the University of Utah, which means you get these guys on the phone and they have to listen to you. You get these guys on the phone and you say, hey, would you be interested in Utah? The answer with all of them is yes. Trying to pull someone away from another Power 4 school is going to be very, very difficult because of Utah's offensive reputation. Getting somebody from an FCS school, getting somebody from a group of 5 school, you can do that. And you can afford it. And all of these guys have good numbers this year. Brennan Marion would be my first choice from UNLV.
Yeah, looking at this list, he'd probably be mine as well. Mac Leftwich seems like a great choice too, but Brennan Marion seems like the guy. Vegas is practically down the road too, so it's
he wouldn't even have to
like
move.
Staying home. He would probably be able to stay home.
He doesn't have, you could just drive up every morning for 6 hours.
Well, hour flight even if you have to fly.
That's the hot lunch. Big thanks to Jersey Mike's. I will keep my eye. I'll keep trying to find the right candidate for an offensive coordinator at the University of Utah. And Brian Johnson, by the way, ain't it, people. He's not coming back because when you get into the NFL coaching circle, you do not leave.
You stay there. Yep.
I mean, maybe when you get to be like retirement age or you get to be like in your 60s and you want to go back to your alma mater, sure. But you can't ask a guy to take less money to have to recruit players. Like
and
the NFL,
and it's a less prestigious job than what he just had.
The NFL is an easier job now than college football, which is crazy to think about.
I'm glad that you're taking on this assignment because we're all counting on you, OC. It's up to you to find it.
I'm going to find the offensive coordinator. I'll do it for you. It might be Mike Bajakian, and if he gives you 31 points a game for the Final Four, then it's going to be him. All right, Gordy Chiesa joins me next. We had to bump him yesterday because we had the Utah coaches and players in studio. Victor Wembanyama did a thing that happens way too often against the Utah Jazz. And not just this year, but has happened over the years with the Utah Jazz. People play out of their mind. He went 5 by 5 against the Utah Jazz. We'll talk about Wemby, that performance, and this horrible, but is it also kind of great Utah Jazz start. Gordy Chiesa next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700.
They have struggled with third quarter action. There's another turnover and a give. Wemby inside and lay it up and in by Champagny.
Craig Bowler-Jack on the call there, one of Victor Wembanyama's many contributions to a game against the Utah Jazz that saw the San Antonio Spurs blow out the Jazz, who were without Lauri Markkanen. He was out with back spasms. Big thanks to SCG Media for giving us the sound there. Gordy Chiesa, our resident NBA insider, stops by to talk about this Utah Jazz start of the season. Gordy, how are you?
OC, I'm doing fine. And speaking of Wembanyama, he was sensational last night. And let's not forget, the night before, meaning on Wednesday night, he only scored 2 points. So Chet Holmgren, who's another major young talent, outdueled him on Thursday night in OKC. And then to his credit, Wembanyama, he got himself ready to play mentally, and he was such a force. You mentioned about his 25 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, 5 blocks, and 5 steals, and he dominated the game for the Spurs. And the Spurs, just generally speaking, they showed their courage also to get a win in the Delta Center.
What's more impressive, Gordy, someone who could put together multiple triple-doubles or multiple 5-by-5 games? Because that's what he was able to do. He had 25 points. You already rattled off his box score, but it's not common to see someone who's got at least 5 in 5 different statistical categories.
That's exactly right. It's much hard. I mean, both things are commendable. Triple doubles is also great. This is 5 in 5 different categories, which tells you that it's the ultimate versatility. We're able to get points, rebounds, assists, blocks, and steals. And that steals and blocks is the hardest thing, because a lot of times you could be a guard and you can get points, assists, and long rebounds to get 5, or a triple-double, you're going to get 10. But those 5 blocks and steals separate everyone else. And I had the pleasure to coach Andre Karolinko. He did it 3 times, which is the second most of all time. Hakeem Olajuwon did it 6 times, which shows you his versatility. And Olajuwon shows you how great he was, that he's the 9th best stealer of all time, and by far the number 1 big guy stealing the ball. But Wembanyama someday could be that, possibly someday lead the NBA as far as career-wise in block shots, and also as far as steals, because the way he plays, he's so active, and his length. So it's very impressive. So it's 5 and 5 is absolutely hard to do.
And Wemby's just, I mean, he's an alien. He's so much fun to watch. It's wild. What is the number one thing he needs to develop and to work on? He's still a very young player.
Yeah, very much. The first thing is that people don't realize how young he is. OC, he turns 21 on January 4th of 2025. Turns 21. So he's 20 years old right now. So visualize him when he's much mature as far as his strength, upper body strength. And that's the one thing he has to work on as far as when he does post up, whether it's stationary or running post up. He has to work on his game as far as being able to take the contact and finish through contact. Right now, usually speaking, when he scores inside, he outlengths the person versus trying to go through them. So in playoff games, as they go forward, the Spurs organization, he'll have to improve his scoring in traffic, absorb the contact. Let's not forget also now with the Spurs, they're the model franchise, 5 NBA championships. However, they haven't been in the playoffs in over 5 years, since 2019. So as good as Wembanyama is going to be, and he is right now, franchise-wise, they still have a lot of work to do yet.
The Jazz are the only winless team remaining in the NBA right now. I know that that's a hard thing for fans who bought tickets to swallow, but it's also, kind of what you need to happen. You need to be bad. You need to maximize your draft position. I've asked you some variation of this question every single time we've been on the show together, but like how bad is too bad? How good is too good? 0-5 to start the season is not what Will Hardy and this team wants, but it might be what the ownership and general management wants.
Oh, very much, absolutely. So the Jazz decided to go forward as far as a franchise, building through the draft, almost we'll say exclusively. So we'll say just for metrics, we'll say 80% through the draft and 20% others. Meaning what? Signing free agents. It wasn't last summer or smart trades. It will be next summer, meaning 2025 and 26. So they decided, OC, that here's the 8 guys at the core that they're going to play through their mistakes. They are, in any order, Keontae George, Isaiah Collier, Cody Williams, Taylor Hendricks, who's hurt right now, I get that. But as far as them going forward, Johnny Juzang, Bryce Sensabaugh, Kyle Filipowski, and Walker Kessler. So that's their core 8 as they go forward, and they're going to try to hit the jackpot this June in the draft, which should be a tremendous as far as refurnishing as far as the franchise with some new players. So now if you're a fan, you have to live through the growing pains of doing it. But that's the master plan, and that's what the ownership has decided to do, and also as far as management. Now, from a coaching standpoint, you have the company line. I get it, but you want to win. And from a player standpoint, you want no part of worrying about the draft. So if you're Colin Sexton, if you're Jordan Clarkson, you're John Collins, you're Patty Mills, for example, you want to win right now, and that's how you think as a player.
Gordy Chase is our guest talking NBA basketball here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Speaking of other teams that are off to lackluster start, Utah Jazz standing alone is winless, but the Milwaukee Bucks, the fighting Giannis Antetokounmpo, they've only got one win. They're off to a 1-4 start. What's wrong with the Bucks?
Okay, their defense, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that because last year, Adrian Griffin was the coach, did a tremendous job there, and OC, he got fired because he raised issues with the players as far as how dare you want to play defense. So when Adrian Griffin coached last year, when he coached the Bucks, they were 30-13, including 19-4 at home. So 30-13, 19-4 at home. Let's fast forward. 1 year later, is that what Adrian got fired for? They still haven't corrected. Meaning what? Their lack of defense. And so the reason why the Bucks are struggling at 1-4 is that collectively they don't dig in and play defense either individually, on ball, off ball, as a group right now. So that is absolutely their problem right now. Why they're struggling. They're 1-4. They're tied with the Raptors and they're tied with the Pistons for the worst team in the East. The flip side, let's be positive. The Cavaliers. They are 5-0. There are only two undefeated teams in the NBA as we speak. They are the Cavaliers 5-0 and the Thunder 4-0. Now, why are the Cavaliers so good? They're first in the NBA in a shooting percentage at 51.5%, and they're first in the NBA as far as making threes. Jazz basketball are just the opposite, where the Jazz are the worst shooting team in the NBA at 38.5 and the worst three-point shooting in the NBA at 27.2. So you've got to be able to make shots, even though defense rules, absolutely, but you've got to be able, especially in playoff games, you've got to be able to score the ball at a very accurate clip. Now, how do you score the ball just quickly? I'm asking this question, OC, by a lot of fans all the time. I call it the pre-shot values, where the more you screen, the more you cut, the less you dribble, and individually, the more you have proper footwork of getting yourself ready to shoot to make a shot, it's advantageous as far as being more accurate. So in Jazz basketball, they've got to re-fundamental them as far as passing, cutting, and moving, and dramatically less dribbling.
We're early in the season, very, very early in the season. Most teams have played 5 games. Some teams have played less than that. How long do you wait before you feel like the sample size is enough to either get concerned about a team, to get optimistic about a team that maybe you didn't have such high hopes for? How large of a sample size do you need, Gordy?
20 games. Yeah, so the metric right now, OC, is 20 games. That's when you know how you stand against the other competition. So remember, again, it's who you play against. Hey, I love so-and-so, Phil LeBlanc. He's my favorite player. Okay, wonderful. However, when he plays against someone in his division or in the conference, can they match up? So I always talk about it all the time is that, say, just for in Jazz basketball, someday that Taylor Hendricks and Filipowski got to outplay Keegan Murray all the time of the Sacramento Kings. I use that as an example. Keegan Murray, what are you, crazy? That guy? And the point is that all these guys are young, 20-something. And so who can outplay the competition in your conference, generally speaking, 3 out of 4 times? And that's what you've got to look at. So when you're a fan and you're a smart fan, look at the other team's rosters and try to figure out, are our guy, meaning the player that you cheer for, is he in the same range as far as talent, but also as far as skill set? And by the way, does he have an edge about himself?
All right, so I want to use these 4 teams at the bottom of the East as an example of that 20-game thing. So Philadelphia, Toronto, Milwaukee, Detroit are all 1-win teams right now. 20 games in, which of those teams do you think has the best winning record, the best percentage?
76ers. Yeah, and the reason why is that they're playing without Joel Embiid and they're playing without Paul George. And so once they get healthy, those guys, they'll be able to jump in the standings and get minimum into the playoffs. Now, and if you're a Sixers fan, the city of brotherly love, OC, there'll be no love come April and May if they get knocked out in the first round. So again, it's what people perceive you of your talent level, because the Sixers do have a whole bunch of talent on their team, and that just generally speaking, they've underperformed. Now, I know there have been injuries, so I'm using my words carefully here as far as trying to be objective, but they've underperformed the last few years in the playoffs. And so that's how they're going to be judged. They're judging by the playoffs. I think they're going to be able to make the playoffs, and then here's their starting lineup. Should be Therese Maxey, tremendous player. Paul George, Kelly Oubre, as far as playing there, and as far as Joel Embiid. So they have a lot, and Cleve Martin. So they have a lot of really good players, and then off the bench they have Reggie Jackson and Eric Gordon. So and Andre Drummond, who's a young big guy that can really play as far as rebounding. So they have a good team. So they should be able to make the playoffs.
Swinging the interest back to the Utah Jazz, Lauri Markkanen out with back spasms. Now, is this something to be concerned about, or is back spasms a way to say, hey, we're just giving this guy a little bit of rest?
No, it's concerning. He got hit, though, so it's an injury actually happened. But it's concerning because just think of it, you're an athlete. The one thing you always rely on is what, besides your instincts, is your back. That your back really, so he's got some spasms in his back, and that's affecting him as far as his overall shooting. Also, the defense, OC, this year, they're really game planning to stop him. They're much more physical, the competition. And so far, when he did play, he hasn't responded to that physicality. Just generally speaking, the way to be physical offensively versus edgy defense is to drop your shoulder, lead shoulder, and drive that shoulder off the dribble into the defensive player's body to make him have to move his feet and and force the referee to make calls. And then also is that when you take a jump shot, OC, in a game against good defense, often a lot of times you want a ball fake to get the guy up in the air and then go into a dribble drive to the basket. So a lot of times with Lauri Markkanen, they run him off the three-point line because he's such a knockdown shooter. The counterpunch that is right now is ball fake jumper into mid-range jump shots, and that's something he has to learn. Also has to learn that also is Keontae George. He's got to learn how to do a better job of taking the mid-range jump shot with bounce.
All right, what's your list today, Gordy?
My list today, OC, very happily, is the greatest NBA head coaches of all time. Now, this list, OC, is subjective by me. That I don't go just by how many wins a guy has. I try to evaluate what their team was and what the goals were. So and picture the NFL OC also. So this is the criteria when you're at the top of the apex, when you coach professionally in the NBA or in the NFL. The criteria for this list is winning. Yes, winning is absolutely important. 2, longevity. 3, consistency. 4, leadership. And 5, which is vastly underrated, OC, you have to be a change agent. Oh, by the way, players are different than they were 20 years ago. Don't even think about the same way you present yourself to the team. You have to be able to relate to the younger players. And the people that last for a lifetime are the ones to be able to do that. And the last part about this is that most NBA coaches, NFL coaches, they have disciplined themselves. They connect to the people I mentioned, also to their staff, and also their superior teachers. So that's the criteria and some of the attributes. All right, number 15, all time, George Karl. He's won 1,175 career wins. Number 14, Don Nelson, no championships, 1,335 career wins. Number 13, Dr. Jack Ramsey, 1 NBA titles back in 1977 when Bill Walton led that group right now. Number 12, all time, Lenny Wilkins, tremendous coach, 1 NBA championship, Supersonics back in 1979. Number 11, 2 titles with the Celtics, 1984 and 1986, when Danny Ainge was the fifth starter on an elite organization, is K.C. Jones. Number 10 all time. His team overachieved many times in his coaching career. One NBA championship back in 2004, Detroit Pistons, Larry Brown. Number 9. I know I'm not objective. This is my colleague and friend for 30 years, Jerry Sloan, 9th all-time coach. Unfortunately, no NBA championships. 1,221 wins, which is the second most ever as far as with the same franchise. Greg Popovich has the most wins ever with one franchise. Jerry Watt is second right now. Number 8 all-time coach. 2 championships, Knickerbockers, 1970 and 73, Red Holzman. Number 7 all-time, he's active. He coaches the Miami Heat right now. 2 NBA championships, 2012 and 13, Eric Spoelstra. Number 6, 2 championships, Detroit Pistons, 1989 and 1990. He was the original coach of the Olympics of our dream team in Barcelona, Chuck Daly. Number 5, active right now, all-time, 4 NBA titles with the Golden State Warriors. He's also Olympic gold medal head coach in Paris this past year in 2024, talking about Steve Kerr. Number 4 all-time, 5 NBA titles, 4 with the Lakers, 1 with the Miami Heat, Pat Riley. Number 3, he coached last night versus the Jazz, also as a gold medal Olympics in Tokyo back in 2021, 5 championships with the San Antonio Spurs, Greg Popovich. Number 2 all-time greatest coach, NBA history, 9 championships with the Celtics, 9 championships, Red Auerbach. And the number 1 coach of all time with 11 championships, 6 with the Bulls and 5 with the Lakers, is Phil Jackson. Thus, OC, that's my list of all time, the 15 greatest ever NBA coaches.
Hard to argue with anyone on that list. The credentials and the reputations kind of speak for themselves. Gordy.
OC, change agent. What do you think?
Gordy, where would you put yourself on the list of all-time great assistant coaches?
Oh, you're being kind. I don't know.
Because we've had folks on the station who make the case for you, which is probably better. That you're among the all-time greats. You've been around the game for so long. I mean, I'm on that. We know that you're an MVP on this show, but Hall of Famer at least in our eyes, Gordy.
No, thank you very much for your kind words. And again, all the coaches, they play an important role. So assistant coaches in the NFL and the NBA are absolutely front and center. Like you're in the middle of the inferno. Like you're not in the outside. You are right in the middle of every day what is going on, all the ups and downs. And that's why it's so important. Your job as an assistant is to be the eyes for the head coach during the game, but not his voice. And that's when you're an elite assistant, when you're able to analyze things, what's going on, to help the head coach who's absolutely immersed in the game. That's whether it's the NFL as a coordinator, OC, or whether it's a big bad NBA.
That's why I can't coach, Gordy. I can't be eyes, I can't be hands, I can't be feet. All I can be is a voice. So that's why I can't.
OC, what happens is you learn. You're less emotional. That you're really looking at the game, and usually speaking, just like in the NFL, most times you're 2 or 3 plays ahead of everybody else. You feel the vibe of the game. You understand what's the flow of it. How can I get an advantage right now in the present tense versus coaching backwards and being negativity backwards? It's done with. The only path is to go forward.
You have that perspective, which is why you're so great to talk to. Gordy, always a pleasure. Have a great weekend.
Thanks. Peace out. Thank you. Bye now.
Absolutely the man, Gordy Chiesa. Learn something new every time we talk to him, our resident NBA insider here on the Sean O'Connell Show. A quick reminder, if you're not noticing that the weather is becoming maybe a bit of an issue, that it's cooling down at night, but it's still – when that sun hits you, it's still pretty warm in the daytime. That's rough on your windows. That's rough on your gas bill. That's rough on your power bill when your house doesn't know how to regulate itself. Advanced Windows and the energy efficiency that comes with window replacement, It's the kind of phone call you need to be making this time of year. $2,500 off 10 windows or more, advancedwindows.com. Tell them OC sent you. And, of course, you're trusting Jake and Nate and everyone who not only will come out, measure the windows, install the windows, service the windows. It all happens right there in-house, right here in Salt Lake City. So support a local company with Advanced Windows. Alex Markham, Utah Insider, is going to join us next. We'll talk about the news that Sam Heward is out, but more importantly, how intense is this quarterback battle as the Utes are in a bye week, 8 days away from trying to figure things out against BYU in the Holy War? It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. All right, we're efforting getting Utes Insider here, Alex Markham, on ESPN 700. You're listening to the Sean O'Connell Show on a Friday. We'll send you into the weekend right. An hour from now, we'll be airing our grievances. James, have you been cultivating grievances? Do you know what you're going to air? Is Alonzo?
Absolutely. I always have plenty of grievances, OC. You don't need to worry about that.
James is not only producing the show, he's also got big boss duties as a program director now. So we'll see if Alonzo or Zach Rye or anyone wants to weigh in with airing of some grievances as well. We got Lee Sterling joining us in just a few minutes to talk about the big games of the weekend. But the Big 12 Conference, Big 12 at noon, is brought to you by Mountainland Supply. Go to mountainlandsupply.com. Check out their new location. Also got a new physical location, the showroom, anything you need if you're in that remodel space for your house. Even if you're not, and you go to Mountainland Supply, suddenly you might find yourself looking to redo a bathroom or something. So tread carefully, but make sure that you tell them that OC sent you. BYU and Utah both on buys, and the standings in the Big 12 Conference right now, I think we probably haven't done enough justice to this. We haven't talked about this enough, but there are still five teams, really four that are kind of firmly in the race, but there are still five teams that have a shot in the race in this Big 12 Conference championship picture. And of course that means they got a shot in the Big 12 or in the college football playoff picture. Alex Markham, kind enough to stop by. We'll keep this one short. Utes Insiders are brought to you by Metro Elevator, Utah's preferred vertical transportation experts. Alex, welcome to the show. How are you?
Sean, I'm good, buddy. You?
Doing all right. I really only have a couple questions for you today, but I appreciate you giving us some time.
Of course.
The quarterback battle that is seemingly happening right now in fall camp. Wait, nope, we're not in fall camp. We're in the middle of the season. We're past the midpoint of the season. How serious is this as a quarterback battle? Is this job truly up for grabs in your mind?
I mean, to me, Isaac hasn't done enough to solidify it. So, yeah, I feel like it's fair to call it a battle. Rose has shown signs off and on over the years, but that injury last year really kind of just, derailed him a little bit. So I think it's time to at least open her up and see if Rose can provide a little bit extra juice. One thing with him is he's got the swagger, he's got the confidence. So if he can get in there and, just get something rolling. I mean, when he started off against Houston, he had the guys dropping the ball. That's not on him, So I feel like he did better in the Houston game than his numbers actually show. And I am eager to see, him get a little bit more of a shot and see if it really is a true battle that he can win.
I think that there's a lot of people who feel the same way, that maybe that sample size, that little bit we saw against Houston is not truly indicative of what he's capable of. And it's a delicate balance, in my opinion, because whatever you decide here is critically important to the future of this particular season, might be critically important to the short-term future of the franchise, so to speak, of the football program up there. And you're going against a BYU defense that has been masterful in creating turnovers. They've been good at pressuring the quarterback, not great at pressuring the quarterback, but good at it. They've been sure tacklers. So you're asking whoever it is, Isaac or Brandon Rose, to go out in a rivalry game, knowing what that means, against one of the best teams in the country, not just the conference, and the margin for error gets more narrow in a game like this one. So I'm just having a hard time figuring out how we're going to fairly assess whoever it is if he's the right answer.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. And how I view it too, though, is, again, like I said, Isaac's got a bright future. He hasn't progressed like everybody would have thought he would, regardless of what that fact even is. But, when it comes down to it, BYU has guys familiar with the Utah program. They're familiar with how the Utah coaches tick as well, both sides of it, right? But at the same time, too, I kind of lean towards, throw the guy out there. If he can prove himself enough in practice these next 2 weeks, throw the guy out there that there's just not enough film on. See if you can catch him off guard, and it's not a fun situation for Utah to be in. And I don't know. It's just unfortunately par for the course on just how this season's unfolded.
Alex Markham, Utah Football Insider, is our guest here on ESPN 700. So your receiving options get a little bit thinner. Money Park's out for the season. And look, it's not a good situation to lose Money Parks, but we came into the year thinking that there were plenty of options to catch passes in the wide receiver room, in the tight end room. That's still the case, even if injuries have taken a couple of these guys away. But with Money out, who needs to step up?
Manir McLean, he was breaking out, really nicely last year until he got his injury, and so I was expecting a little bit more from him. Luca Caldarella, he's somebody that, you wouldn't think much of, just when it comes to the flash and everything and everybody getting the hype and getting excited for the season, but he's just solid and consistent. He kind of reminds me of, kind of the type of guys that Utah had back in 2008, that they weren't flashy, but they just got the job done. From there, you got to hope that Alford ends up, learning the playbook a little bit faster, or, just giving him simplified routes that he can go out and be effective. I mean, the guy's a good wide receiver. He had over 600 yards last year, that doesn't just happen, So one guy that I'm really intrigued to see if they can, get him some more playing time and see what he can do over these next 2 weeks, where I think the bye is really fortunate, is Dadron Zipper. He's got a knack for, really just, taking the top off the defense and getting open deep. He's got speed for days. If they can get him comfortable, and whether it's Rose or Wilson comfortable with him, that's a nice guy to really be able to potentially slot in that. But at the same time, too, man, it broke my heart seeing that happen with Money, and it didn't even seem like it was a crazy play that he got hurt on. It looked like he just fell, and then just simple fall, and next thing you know, he's grabbing his arm and he's out.
Before I let you go, I put this poll question out there. If the worst case scenario unfolds and Utah misses a bowl game this year, it would be as bad of a season, or potentially the worst season that Kyle Whittingham ever has as the head coach at University of Utah. Do you think that makes it more or less likely that he walks away if he has a terrible year? I'm of the opinion it'd be hard for him to walk away on a really bad note, but the responses so far have been split. Where do you stand on Kyle Whittingham walking away if this proves to be a disastrous year?
Man, I know you don't got a lot of time, and that's like a 30-minute to a 45-minute conversation. But here's the thing, okay, is going into this year, I was kind of pretty much expecting this to be Kyle's last year. That's kind of reading the tea leaves and just everything I've been hearing. That seemed likely, right? And then you get the stuff going with Morgan. I don't know, and it can be somebody's greatest asset or one of their biggest detriments, right? I don't know that Kyle can sit back and say, okay, we missed a bowl game, or we had 4 or 5 losses or more, right? And sit back and say, I'm good with this. I'm going to retire anyways. So it's going to be a really interesting thing to see. I know a lot of the people that I've talked to that had been expecting Kyle to, have this be his last year, they're not as sure anymore, and so it's going to take some soul searching for him to really see if it's something that he wants to do. It's weird, right? Because you got all these longtime coaches that have been retiring lately that literally just step away saying like, look, I love the game, but I don't like where it's turned to now. The NIL is ruining college football. It's a good and legitimate excuse for a lot of those coaches, and it's going to be really interesting just to see where Kyle's mind is at the end of the year. And if that happens, at the same time too, you got to respect the man for everything that he's done. And, again, he's a legend. He's the greatest coach in Utah football history. But, again, they've been prepping for Morgan to be the head coach for so long that something like that needs to be taken into consideration too. Like, okay, it wasn't the year that I wanted, and it's unfortunate, but should I press on and keep going? and put Morgan in this situation, And so there's a lot of variables to play into it. At this moment, I just don't know that Kyle can walk away. But again, I think you and me even had a conversation at the start of the year. I fully expected it to be his last, but we also expected the results to be a lot different.
Yeah, riding off into the sunset's a little bit different than kind of like, oh, I guess I'll just let this be the end if it's not a good season. But look,
yeah, it's tough.
It all hinges. I think 8 days from now we get a lot more insight when the Holy War plays out. So we'll be talking before then, but appreciate your time today. Thank you, Alex.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks, Osi.
Alex Markham, Utes Insider from Rivals, brought to you by Metro Elevator, Utah's #1 vertical transportation expert. All right, the picks that you might want to make this weekend for entertainment purposes only, of course. Lee Sterling of Paramount Sports joins us next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700. Hope everyone enjoyed their Halloween. I hope you got a good weekend coming up. Utah BYU on a bye, but plenty of very interesting matchups in college football. And joining us, the number one handicapper in the business, friend of the program, Lee Sterling of Paramount Sports. Lee, how are you?
I'm good. Probably ate too much candy last night, but other than that,
we all did, good. Lee. We all did. That's the right of a parent when Halloween comes around.
What did you snack on?
I'm a big Snickers guy for whatever reason this year. I probably had 10 different Snickers. Also, the old school, the original Smarties that only seem to rear their ugly heads at Halloween time. I had a bunch of Smarties. Yeah,
they're bringing back some of these old school candies, but we used to get a lot of trick-or-treaters. Now they have these safe streets. It's like 2 blocks from us, so most of the kids are there. We only had probably 30, 35 kids, so I snacked on Snickers, Reese's, and Baby Ruth.
Ooh.
So, and I even had a $100,000 grand. Remember that?
Oh yeah, I love the $100,000. $100,000, I think, is another one of those candies you can only get at Halloween. I think if you go, in like I don't know, if you go in June, you can't find $100,000 in the store, but at Halloween you can.
Yeah, that and Almond Joy. So I had a little way too much as I was sweating out the Jets game last night. So.
Yeah, well.
Yep.
Let's talk about this week's games. We'll start with the banger. 4 versus 3. Ohio State, Penn State. College football playoff implications, Big Ten championship implications, all of it on the line. Ohio State is the favorite here.
And I've been going against James Franklin for a lot of years, and it's been money. But something has changed. And what are the changes? Well, he brought in a new offensive coordinator, a kid from Kansas named Andy Kolecki, and he just is a great play caller. And also he's very creative, comes up with some trick plays. If you watch the USC game, did you see that where he had the tight end snap the ball and go out for a pass?
Yeah, wild stuff.
Yeah, one of the best plays I've seen in a long time. And that's one of the reasons they've become much more dynamic on offense. And also, if you look at Kansas, that's one of the problems they've had. They really miss him. But also at halftime, they made some adjustments on defense and shut down a USC offense that can move the ball up and down the field and has some really good receivers. Ohio State is probably most similar to USC of any team that Penn State will play. So I think there's improvement there, and maybe Ohio State isn't the team that I thought they were. You know, they have some problems on the offensive line. They could be down to a third-string offensive tackle. They only ran, coming off of a bye, for 54 yards with their top 2 running backs, Judkins and Henderson, on 20 carries versus Nebraska. I think unless Ohio State can hit 3 or 4 plays down the field throwing the football, I think they're in trouble. Wrong team favored. I like Penn State 27-23, straight up.
All right, so first pick is the upset here. All right, this one has big implications in the Big 12 conference. Iowa State, one of the undefeated teams left, top 10 squad right now. They're the number 1 defense in the conference, taking on the number 1 offense in the conference, at least in terms of scoring points. But Iowa State, big-time favorites over Texas Tech.
They are, and I think part of the reason is if you watched their last game against Central Florida before the bye, the score was close. But Central Florida really had, I thought, 2 kind of fluky defensive. One was the score, and one they ran back to the 1-yard line. The guy, just like last night in the Jets game, dropped the ball too early. Can you imagine doing that in a game? What would your coaches have done if you did that in a high school or college game?
Well, the beauty of it is they weren't giving me the ball anyway. But if I had done that, there's no way I'm sniffing that thing ever again. And look, that one is particularly triggering to folks listening right now because in Utah's Pac-12 era, it happened in a game against Oregon. Ball got picked up and went all the way the other way. And poor Kalen Clay was the name of the guy who did it. He'll never live it down, ever.
No. So I can't imagine. I think I always made sure I was 5 yards into the end zone before I handed it to the ref. But, I mean, crazy. I mean, my high school coaches, you would have been running, probably would have been showing up at 5 in the morning. I mean, that being the case, I think that Texas Tech is in trouble here. Iowa State's lost the last 2 years. So coming off the bye, they're going to be ready for this game. They have the number 13 total defense. The Texas Tech quarterback, Burns Morton, he's not 100%. And if they can't run the football and they have to throw it earlier and often, he may not even be able to finish this game. I think they're going to come after him and put the heat on him. And I think Texas Tech's defense is so bad. Abilene Christian put up over 50 on him. I like Iowa State big here, 41-17.
Iowa State to win and to cover. All right, into the NFL plays. Detroit is a favorite against Green Bay. The Lions, they're probably the NFC favorite at this point.
Yep. I would say so, but I think they're going to have to find someone at trade deadline at defensive end. They've got to find someone for Hutchinson. Hutchinson had the number one pass rush rate, stop rate. He was number one, I think, in 4 or 5 different categories. So you can get by for a game or two without a guy like that, but down the road it's going to be tough. Their offense is incredible, 42, 47, and 52 points in 4 of the last 5 games. But one of those games was an interdivision game where they only beat Minnesota by 2 points. How about this? Jared Goff has only played 1 game this season outdoors, and that was in Arizona. That's as good as indoors. So I think they're going to have a tough sledding here against this Green Bay defense. Is starting to get some guys back on defense. Zaire Alexander might play in this game, and I have a feeling Jordan Love's going to give it a go too. I'm going to call for the upset here also. Green Bay, these interdivision games are tough sledding, hard-fought games. Green Bay, outright 27-26.
All right. Another upset pick for you if you're following. Atlanta, they're favorites against the Cowboys. I always like to see the Cowboys lose, but do they this week?
I think there's a good chance they do. They brought it last week in their game against San Francisco coming off the bye. I thought their game plan was great, and they looked good for a half. They were up by 7. They should have been up double digits. But in the second half, what did San Francisco do? They made halftime adjustments, scored 3 straight touchdowns on 3 straight drives to start the third quarter, and the game was over at that point, in my opinion. So Dallas now, they got to come up with some different type of game plan. They got to try to stop an Atlanta offense that has 2 running backs, Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, might be the best 1-2 punch in the NFL right now. And they couldn't stop San Francisco, which ran for 223 yards and threw for 260 on them. And, Dak just, all he's got is one guy. He's got CeeDee Lamb. Other than that, I'm not impressed here. Atlanta, 31-24. The right team is favored.
Arizona State, look, Utah fans don't like what this team did to them a few weeks back. Oklahoma State is maybe the only thing that makes Utah fans feel better right now because their season is going even worse than Utah's is. Arizona State, 3-point favorites.
So I have a friend who is a Utah fan, and he bets with his friend who's a BYU fan who will win more games each year. It looks like he's going to be out some money this year.
Ouch. Ouch.
And no one could have predicted that either team would be this good or this bad, BYU and Utah. So if you want to get this game, I think I've got some strong – I think there's an easy winner on one side of this game, the Arizona State-Oklahoma State game. First 5 callers that call 800-400-9741. We'll give them the game for free, 800-400-9741. We actually had a losing week for our clients last week, first one in a long time, but we still won 7 out of 9 weeks. We went 5-7 for our clients last week, but got back on a roll, won 2 nights ago, and a big win with the Jets last night. So anyone wants to hop on board, we don't call this month November. We won in September, we won in October, we call it Dovember. You can get 5 weeks of action, normally $5.97, just $3.97. Just one place, ParamountSports.com, or call 800-400-9741.
Lee, always great hearing from you. Thanks for your time.
You too, buddy. Take care.
Lee Sterling, Paramount Sports. Got a couple upset picks this week. It's interesting. All right. Rule changes have been happening in college football, away from the field, on the field, though. We talked about the documentary. We talked about Connor Stallions. We talked about the sign stealing at Michigan. And so what did they do? What did the NCAA do? They went and they changed the rule. Instead of having these elaborate sign language and symbology things that could be decoded, they said, we're just going to do what the NFL does. You're going to go communication straight from the booth into the helmet. Well, turns out they potentially made it even easier to steal your opponent's plays. We'll get to that on the other side because only the NCAA can screw something like this up. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. All right, welcome to hour number 3. We are 23 minutes away from the airing of grievances. Get it off your chest, head into the weekend, free and easy. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. If you have not watched the Untold, the documentary on Netflix about the sign-stealing scandal at Michigan and Connor Stallions, please do. It is so fascinating. It is so interesting. And we saw the NCAA react swiftly to this scandal and to change the rules. They're actually a lot more nimble now. Remember how just this season, like 4 weeks ago, Dan Lanning exploited a loophole in the rule set to where he took a delay of game penalty to take seconds off the clock. And
I do remember that, OC.
They've already,
thank you for bringing that
They've
up.
already made a rule change to make that impossible moving forward, right?
Which is good.
The NCAA finally figured out that they have to be reactionary in a rapid sense. So we all know the change, right? And we talked about the change in the preseason. We talked about it at media days. We talked about it after the first couple of games. How is it when the quarterback and the green dot, the defensive captain, can hear the play calls directly from the booth or directly from the headset and just relay them that way instead of having these crazy, convoluted, complicated scenarios to get the play in to the quarterback, who then distributes the play to the rest of the team. Or oftentimes, the quarterback doesn't even have to, because each position group, depending on your system, could look to the sideline, and they would see like a picture of James Peterson, and then next to that would be a hot dog, and then next to that would be like a unicorn, and then the offensive line and the wide receivers and everyone knows how to translate those things into the play that they're supposed to run.
Yeah, what would that be a pass play, you think, OC?
No, it's definitely that's like an inside zone for sure. But every team had developed different scenarios, and then Michigan famously got in trouble for doing a little code breaking and dedicating one particular individual to not only during the game try and suss out the tendencies in the codes, but the allegations were that Connor Stallions was in charge of and was mastermind behind an entire code-breaking operation where he would send his military veteran buddies on Michigan's dime to other games to pre-scout the signs that were being given, right? And actually, University of Utah was among the teams in the the Pac-12 conference that had a reputation for being better at cracking the code. Like by the second half in a lot of games, Arizona State in particular complained about, hey, they're stealing our signs. They know something that we don't know. Utah was pretty good at it. And Kyle Whittingham has been mostly coy when he was asked about it when it was still relevant. It was like, well, why wouldn't you try and steal their signs? Why wouldn't you try and figure out if they're making hand gestures, what those things mean?
Yeah, the same way signs were always stolen in baseball.
Yes.
The old-fashioned way without cameras before the Astros did what they did. I mean, that should be legal, right? So it's at least what Witt had claimed Utah was doing.
Right. And by the way, the NCAA never had a rule against having even someone sitting in the booth watching the other sideline and being like, oh, when they flap their arms like they're little birds or whatever, that means that they're going to run cover 2. Whatever it was,
it doesn't mean that there's an angel on the field.
That's a great movie from childhood, by the way, Angels in the Outfield.
We were going to have the people guess, OC.
Oh, I ruined it. I just wrecked it.
I think people, they probably knew.
All right. In any case, we all know about that saga, right? And that led to a rule change in the NCAA where now you could just have communication go directly via radio signal, via radio frequency from the booth into a remote receiver in the quarterback's helmets. Quarterback helmets, if you've noticed this year in college football, and it's been this way in the NFL, the ear holes aren't actually open.
Yeah.
They're mostly closed, and that's where the earpiece is, right? That serves a dual purpose. It gives them a place to put the earpiece, and it also eliminates the background noise that could be confusing, especially in some of these loud stadiums. So, supposed to make it to solve the problem, right? Well, a few weeks ago, Texas Tech started complaining like, hey, guess what? They're figuring our stuff out. They know our opponents know what's going on.
We're not giving signs anymore.
James, it turns out that the radio signals going from booth to helmet are in no way encrypted or made secret.
Of course not.
So if you have, like, I don't know, radio hobbyist tendencies, if you used to be a ham radio operator, if you're someone who has worked in, like, I don't know, long-haul trucking where you have to be very familiar, if you've been radio communications, like in aviation, if you have a military background, whatever. If you're someone who knows how to operate a radio even like above the average person being able to turn one on in their car, you can find these radio frequencies and you can listen to the play calls.
How many? I mean, obviously there's allegations that people from other teams, but how many do you think of those people of those walks of life that you talked about just stumbled upon these and were like,
probably
every Saturday, I'm going to listen to
there are people
the play calls.
There are people who in the stadium every week, right? It's usually old guys. They'll be sitting there and they'll have like an old short band radio and they're listening to, a lot of folks use it through their phone. There's apps, right? You pull up the app and you listen to the ESPN 700 broadcast with Bill Riley, Stevenson, Sylvester, Scott Mitchell while you're sitting there in the stadium. There are plenty of people who do that.
Yeah.
With the iPhone, what are they called? The ear pods.
Yeah. AirPods. Yeah.
The AirPods.
And if they're really old school, you're right. They've got an actual radio. They're not just on their phone.
And there's some of those who do it that way.
Yeah.
Like those guys probably all scrolling through, like you get the scratchly, the crackly. They're probably going past listening to Andy Ludwig's voice calling a play in. This, to me, is the craziest. Like, somebody went and made the decision, hey, we're not going to do the hand signals and the holding up the pictures, and we're not going to do the little Macarenas on the sideline anymore because those are too easy to decipher. Radio frequencies. But without any encryption, without anything to keep them secret at all.
Yeah.
What?
Idiotic is what that is.
I put a poll question out whether or not, because they're not encrypted, whether or not you would support your favorite team listening in to opposing teams' radio calls. And
how many people without integrity?
24% said yes, listen to them, any edge you can get. 76% said no, that's cheating.
So 24% of people who voted have no integrity. Okay,
well, I mean,
just kidding. No,
if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Yeah, there's an argument for it.
But the reason that this is so,
I would say no.
The reason this bothers me so much is because you could make it, I think, a pretty easy argument that while not everyone shares the same terminology, if I give a play call to an opposing offensive coordinator, if I just let them listen to my playbook terminology, and I don't care how long the sentence is, they probably are going to, even if they don't share the exact same terminology, they're probably in very short order going to be able to be like, well, that's obviously a pass play. That's obviously a pass play that involves motion out of trips, and that's a pass play where maybe your primary receiver is the X. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's not going to be – it's harder, I think, to encrypt the verbal language of your play calls than the signs on the sideline.
Yeah.
Than the motions and the pictures and things like that. So if teams were indeed listening in, and I'm sure somebody figured this out pretty early on in the season, I mean, maybe this is why Oregon's undefeated. Maybe this is why, dare I say it, BYU is undefeated.
Ooh, conspiracy.
I'm not going to do that. No, there's a bunch of great play on the field for all these teams, obviously, but like this is
it's crazy.
Am I wrong in thinking this feels like an even easier way to cheat?
Yeah, it really does. Especially if one of the fans or alumni of your school is one of the people in the walks of life that you listed off, military, that worked with radios, ham radio enthusiast, someone who's educated in finding frequencies that are hard to find. You could hear from one of them, one of your alumni that's into that sort of thing, that has that kind of skill, could have stumbled upon this at the start of the season and then sent an email or gave the athletic office a call to be like, hey, just wanted to let coach know I can hear the other team's calls. And then, boom, you're in business if you wanted to pursue that.
So the Big 12 did an investigation at the request of Kirby Hocutt, who's the athletic director at Texas Tech. Texas Tech, in back-to-back losses to TCU and Baylor, thought that maybe there had been some foul play, that maybe their communications had been compromised because they're using unencrypted frequencies, which everybody in Power 4 college football uses unencrypted frequencies right now. And the Big 12 did an investigation and said, no, the integrity of these things was not compromised. I don't begin to pretend to know how you would even conduct that investigation.
Yeah.
How do you go back and, I'm sure maybe these things are recorded and they're archived, maybe. And if they are, you're listening to what? Somebody accidentally crackling in? I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much you can trust that kind of verification process.
I really don't know. I have no idea how they would, one way or another, confirm this. Hocutt said, when he raised the concern, he said, we got to have a game whose integrity is not questionable in any way on a Saturday afternoon. We owe it to the 120 young men on our football team to ensure that happens, that it's a game of fair competition, and the same set of rules are enforced. So you went from a situation in which one team, and probably more than one, but one team got caught deploying pretty significant resources and, in my opinion, a really unique and intelligent and kind of singularly focused in almost a pathological way individual in this Connor Stallions guy. They had all of that working in Michigan's favor and were able to get signs because of it.
And it's a whole group of people, a whole system.
It's a whole big operation, right? I came away from watching that thing kind of it's cheating, but if you're trying that hard and you're doing something that's giving you an advantage and it's this pretty unique scenario, I'm mad about it, but I'm not that mad about it. If I'm an opposing coach, or if I'm a coach, period, I don't know who I would be opposing, but if I'm a coach, period, and if I find out, wait a second, we just lost to Baylor, who stinks. We lost to Baylor, and you think it might be because the radio frequency you can just tap in if you've been driving a semi-truck? I would be so furious about that. Yeah. I would have to tip my cap to Michigan and to Jim Harbaugh and be like, well, you figured it out before I did, buddy. But this sounds like it's something you could just be like, I downloaded an app that picks up all the local radio frequencies, and I scrolled until I found the one that sounded like football plays.
Yeah. And here's what I am wondering, because we haven't heard of a widespread problem in the NFL with these things. Now, they're famously, almost 10 years ago now, you had the Steelers complaining that the Pats might have tapped their radio frequency or might have been listening in, but that was the only time we ever heard anything like this. Why isn't Brett Yormark? Why isn't other people in other Power 4 commissioners and other commissioners across the nation, why aren't they just lobbing a call to the NFL League office and being like, hey, do you mind sharing with us how you encrypt your radio technology so we can do the same thing? We're looking to do what you guys do. I don't see why the NFL would be like, no, you know what, that's proprietary. We wouldn't they share that with you? And if that's the case, why wasn't it just that simple?
So even the investigation, and these are the findings of the investigation, and these are I guess it's meant to make everyone feel better that the integrity of the game is not compromised here. But how about this? A source at one Big 12 school reported that they had purchased a scanner earlier in the month upon learning of the potential vulnerability, and without any training, was able to use that scanner to find their own coach-to-player communication frequencies during practice. So somebody who didn't know what they were doing was just like, oh, let's see if that works. Let's try this out and see how vulnerable it is. Guess what? The answer came back quite vulnerable.
Oh, my God.
Now, here's the thing that the report says to make you feel better. Well, the frequency does not broadcast all headset communications between coaches. That's good.
Yeah.
Because that would be really problematic.
Yeah.
But merely what one coach says to one player on the field. So the play call.
So arguably the most important part. Yeah.
And only when the coach is holding the button to speak to them before communication is cut off 15 seconds before the snap. So this is what it means. It means that if you go and buy a radio scanner, you can find the frequency and you can listen to the play call. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to know exactly what the play call is. And because of the sequence of how these things work, right, this actually makes it seem like this would only help you defensively.
Yeah.
Because the defensive play call is often reactionary to the offensive play call, which, of course, includes personnel groupings. So the defense uses down and distance, uses the personnel grouping that is shown by the offense, and uses their own predictive, whatever, their stat sheets. All right, when they're in this personnel, this is usually what they do, right? One of the complaints about Utah's offense is it got a little bit predictable. When 19 is in a wide receiver, it's going to be a run play, right? So that's usually what the defense is basing things off of. I'm not sure that if you were an offense listening to the play call to a defense, how valuable this would be, because I don't know if you could get the information in time.
You've probably already made your call.
Right.
So,
But
especially if you're playing Utah, because as we know, Morgan Scalley likes to wait as long as he can before he gets the defensive play call.
There's no real advantage. One, you're speaking a different language. Two, if you think you'd be able to enact in real time what they say and try to do it on the field, you're delusional. You're just being your stereotypical paranoid football coach. You can't relay it to the kids fast enough. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't
there
know
are
about
15 seconds between when the communication stops and when the play starts, usually.
Yeah.
15 seconds is plenty of time for a defensive coach to get the information in his headset, because the information still can go to his headset, and for them to say, okay, they just called whatever. The play call ended in 4-24-6 jet sweep or whatever. And then you're going to go, okay, and you're going to make a hand signal that means something.
Yeah.
So this investigation doesn't make me feel any better about the fact that this chicanery and tomfoolery is probably happening and affecting games.
Yeah, and is this only if you're in the same vicinity? Is that the only way you can pick up this frequency?
They're local frequencies, yes.
Well, yeah, so I was going to say, couldn't you utilize this, a week before as you're scouting the game, and then if you don't know how to decipher it necessarily, as you mentioned, OC, your offensive coordinator probably does. So there could be this opens up for a Connor Stallions type thing, where if you're good enough at hiding it, you could send someone to scout and find the frequency, and you have a week to figure out what those calls are too.
There's no real advantage. You're speaking a different language. Yes, probably. But don't tell me that football coaches in general can't figure out the general gist of what a play call is.
It's like Italian and Spanish and Portuguese.
Yeah, they're all Romance languages.
I think I can get the gist if I speak one of those languages. You can usually, from what I've heard, because I don't speak one of those languages, but from what I've heard, you can usually get the gist of what someone else is speaking in that language.
Yes,
it's still football.
Many of the Latin-based languages kind of cognate their verbs similarly, and there's a lot of commonality with the way that these things are derived. And yes, that's a great analogy, James, because look,
football is the romance language of this.
when a new coordinator comes in, yes, you have to learn a new playbook. Yes, there is different terminology, but there are some pretty universal concepts. I mean, since Little League football, most of us have known like what the average route tree is, the passing route tree, and what the numbers mean in that tree, and what certain, what flag routes are, what post routes are, what corner routes are, what a waggle is. Like, these things are still in everyone's play calls. So even if you know just one little piece of it, doesn't that increase your likelihood of being able to defend it successfully? Don't tell me not to worry about it. I figured it out for you, Utah fans. This is why you've lost 4 in a row. Not because you're playing a true freshman quarterback, not because the all-everything guy got injured and couldn't play well enough, not because you've missed double-digit tackles in 3 of the last 4 games, not because of losing the turnover margin. It's none of that. It's somebody listening in to your play calls and knowing something about it.
Yeah, and I'm going to go a step further. I don't think any of those other things actually happened. I think they just heard the play call. Screwed everything up.
I've just solved your problems.
There it is.
The airing of grievances is next on the Sean O'Connell Show. 877-353-0700. Get it off your chest. Head into the weekend with a free and clean spirit. I've got a real get off my lawn grievance to air next. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700.
And the Royals season now comes down to Yuli Gurriel. 0 for 3 tonight. In the air to center field. Judge has it lined up, and the Yankees are on their way to the LCS. The Royals a good battle. All 4 games were close, but the Yankees now advance to the LCS.
The text line is open. 877-353-0700. Our text line is always sponsored by the Dish Pros at Real OC Sports as well. If you want to air your grievances via social media, it's time for the airing of grievances. We do it every Friday at 1:30, so you can get into your weekend with a clear conscience, or just get that grievance off your chest, lighten the load a little bit before you head to the couple days where you get to enjoy yourself. That Bob Costas final baseball call, by the way, from the ALCS. That's TNT Sports. Bob Costas hanging it up. Baseball, at least.
Yeah, he hung it up already, as we all know, the Olympic coverage. And now that apparently, that Royals-Yankees game was the last game he'll ever call in baseball. They are saying he'll MC special events, things like that, but we won't hear him on a baseball game anymore, which is end of an era. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea as a play-by-play guy, but he's a legend. You have to acknowledge that at the very least.
Put me in that bucket. Not my cup of tea, but he is a legend.
Yeah.
He's obviously...
As a studio host, I think there were few that were better than Bob Costas, but play-by-play, I wouldn't say not near as good as he was as a studio host, but, man, he doing it for as long as he did, especially in baseball, that's impressive.
I'm going to air a grievance with Bob Costas. Leave some for the rest of us. You can't be the studio host and the play-by-play guy, all right? You got to pick one. There's only so many of these jobs to go around, so chill out, bud. All right? This is a serious grievance that I need to air, and I never thought I would be this person in my life, and certainly not publicly on air, but I feel like it's a public service announcement / grievance. People, I'm walking around last night with a gaggle of small children and watching folks rip through the neighborhoods in their cars way above the speed limit. I don't care if the speed limit is 15. I don't care if the speed limit is 40. Every car that I saw last night, not every car, but plenty of cars that I saw last night were going way too fast. There were 2 cars that came on our street in particular. We live on kind of a hill that had to have been going 55 in a residential street. I understand you're in a hurry sometimes. I am guilty of this myself, where I find myself late and I'm going way faster than I should. On Halloween night, don't do that. Grievance aired. You morons. If that was you, and thankfully you probably got it back home and nothing happened, you're still an idiot for doing it. It's just a risk that you should not be taking, driving too fast on Halloween night when there's kids darting all over the streets. Oh, yeah. Some of them in costumes that you can hardly see them in. You got to be better than this.
Seriously.
We have to be better than this. My wife hates how I drive because I'm kind of a grandpa. I drive slow most of the time. But even my wife last night, I'm crawling through these neighborhoods, and even she didn't have a word to say about it because she's like, well, yeah, there's a bunch of little munchkins running around here. I haven't heard any report that anyone got hit. I haven't heard about a broken leg or anything worse, thank goodness, knock on wood. But airing of grievances, I'm airing the grievance that people drive like maniacs in the neighborhoods, even on nights where very obviously you should not be doing so.
Yeah. Whatever happened to, at the very least, if you see a kid in the general vicinity of the street, no matter how close you are to them, whatever happened to slowing way down, right? Like, especially on Halloween night where, like you said, kids are everywhere, all over the street. They're not just staying on the sidewalks. You're crossing street back and forth. Yeah. I don't love... I'm one that I speed a little bit, okay? Not recklessly speeding, but I do go over the speed limit on a regular basis.
Everyone does.
Yeah.
Everyone does.
But it makes me uncomfortable even if kids aren't around to see the way how fast some people drive.
I have
on our streets.
Very dark thoughts about what I need to do to stop the people speeding up and down my street, because my street in particular, it's like a long straightaway in a neighborhood where there's not a lot of long straightaways. So it's like people have the opportunity, like, aha, finally. And so they go really, really fast. And I probably should have thought about that or spent more time in the neighborhood before I bought the house there. So I recognize my own fault in this situation. But I have landscaping in my front lawn that is just like a lot of rocks. And I can't tell you how many times I wanted to just pick up a rock and just throw it at the car. Anyway, grievance aired. And you got to tell me who I should air this next grievance with, James, because there's multiple parties involved. All right? So there's a high school in Knox County, Kentucky called Lynn Camp High School. And their coach just resigned from his position. They're not like a powerhouse. They're not a major producer of Division I basketball talent. This is probably very similar to the high school that most of us attended. All right? It's just a place where kids are trying to enjoy being part of a program, and coaches are trying to coach them up, make them play better, whatever. This coach was ripping into his team, okay? They didn't play well. They had his name's Tyler Wagner, this coach. And in the course of 90 seconds, yelling at his players, he says swear words 25 times. Okay? A tirade is what you call this.
Yes.
From a coach.
Yes.
Wanting more from his team. Now, this is where I don't know who the grievance should be aired with. I'm not airing a grievance with a coach cursing. I'm just not. All right? We're grown-ups here. Even in high school, you can stand hearing swear words. All right? If it's like crazy personal attacks type of verbal abuse, maybe you can make a case to me, but sticks and stones, all right? Words are not something that you should worry about protecting high school athletes from, for the most part. So he says a bunch of curse words, and somebody on the team gets the phone out and records it and shares it, obviously with the intent of being like, hey, look at this. Look how crazy this guy is. Now, that is a major violation of locker room policy and etiquette and everything else. You shouldn't ever videotape anything in a locker room just in case. But, even this, where there's no privacy violations, it's like, dude, that's a coach yelling at you guys for screwing up. That's what sports have been for centuries. And then, it gets shared around, and a lot of the comments are what you would expect them to be. And this coach feels like he needs to tender his resignation. So I'm airing a grievance on this whole situation. If we are now at a situation where kids are so soft and sensitive that high school coaches lose their jobs for swearing, I don't know what we can do. That's too soft. It just is.
Yeah.
Is it ideal to, throw a bunch of F-bombs at high school kids? No. Can they survive it? Yes. Can we stop with this? So who's my grievance supposed to be with? The person who filmed? The administration who supports the resignation? Or maybe the coach himself for being like, I got to go. You're right. This is too much.
Yeah. That's unfortunate that warrants a resignation. Absolutely. And yeah, I'm with you. I don't know. You might need to file 4 or 5 grievances just to be sure that one goes to the right place there, OC.
877-353-0700. Air your own grievances. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've got one. It has to do with today. So the school district my wife works in, guess what, OC? The kids get the day off every year after Halloween. So my grievance is not, good for those kids, good for that school district. My grievance is with, why didn't I ever get the day off the day after Halloween when it was on a weekday? Come on now. Why is it, I didn't know this was a thing. This could have been a thing. They made it they're super smart about it. They made it teacher prep day. So the teachers still, the faculty still has to go in, but the
retroactive
kids don't
grievance being aired here?
retroactive grievance. Like, can we make this universal? Washington County School District, yeah, down in St. George, yeah, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, we're airing a grievance with you from when was your last year of public schooling?
2010, okay?
All right.
14 years ago.
Washington
14
County
and a half
School
years
District
ago.
pre-2010, you have been grievance.
No, it made me a little mad hearing about that. I'm like, come on now. Why? The amount of times I wish I could have just stayed home, well, at any time, really, but especially after Halloween, come on. Grievance aired.
Somebody echoing my grievance of the neighborhood speeders on Halloween night on the text line here.
Should be echoed.
Also, this person is really speaking my language. Possible conspiracy theory grievance building on the story about stealing radio signals. Look into Army, undefeated at 7-0.
Oh.
Do you think they have the technology and know how to pick up radio signals? Yes. Uh-huh. You're absolutely right, Jeff from Sandy. You're right.
Should we ask what happened to Navy against Notre Dame then?
Maybe.
Notre Dame is a superior program.
Navy's big budget now, so they don't use regular radios anymore.
That's it.
If you're a midshipman, you're not learning how to use a regular radio.
That's it.
Now everything's way too fancy in the Navy. They're like the big tech version of the military.
You're right. That's it.
By the way, have you seen the Army helmets that they're going to wear against Air Force with the skull and crossbones unis? Man, they're awesome. And Oklahoma State has some pretty cool unis that they're busting out this week. The original Oklahoma A&M, I think, is what Oklahoma State used to be called. So they've got a different uni. They're doing throwback unis for Oklahoma State. Look, they're terrible. They're not appealing to watch, but at least they have cool unis this week.
Yeah, at least there's that.
Oh, I love this. 7138. I hit a car with a beer last night, probably going 40 in a 25 full of kids. I'm not going to endorse or sign off on throwing things at cars, even though I said that I've thought about doing so. But I'm also not going to air a grievance if you threw a beer at a car that was speeding in a neighborhood full of trick-or-treating children.
That took me a second to have to think through that. I'm like, wait. He hit the car. The car had the beer. I was like, there was no.
He had the beer.
No, I got it now. He was outside the car throwing the beer.
Yes,
it took a second to register.
You can walk and drink. You can't drink and drive.
Yes, absolutely.
Drink and walk is fine. Okay, especially if you're using your beverages to also regulate the safety of the children.
Yes, good for that guy, especially making sure he wasn't the one driving. By the way, I'm wondering if you have a grievance for our flashing light U of U bling.
Why would I have a grievance for that?
I don't know. Is it too?
Is it a holiday situation? I actually have a grievance. I have a grievance. Now that you pointed out, I have a grievance. So we have this interlocking U, like hanging signage, and
you can see it. I'm going to zoom in on it on the stream
on the YouTube stream. Okay, now. It's got flashing lights around the border of the interlocking U's. My problem is those should be red lights only.
Yeah, it's
the grievance I'm airing is that these, unless this is some sort of Christmas decoration, it's got green, red, blue, and yellow lights.
It is
flashing.
very Christmas-like.
I don't need that. It's Utah stuff should be red.
I got way too big a kick out, as you probably noticed when I was telling you. This thing lights up. I got way too big a kick out of it lighting up and it flashing lights. But you're right. It needs to be Utah colors. It's like what we were talking about with blackouts. If black's not in your color scheme, don't do a blackout. If your Christmas lights aren't in your color scheme, don't put them on your bling that you hand out.
By the way, the New York Jets got a win in their blackout uniforms last night. Guess what? Those uniforms suck, Jets.
Yeah.
Grievance with those. Your colors are green and white. There's never been black font. There's never been black anything. It is green and white. You can't have blackout uniforms, Jets.
And their green and white unis are pretty clean, too. That's one of the...
Yeah, it's not my favorite color combo, so I don't love them one way or another, but yes,
it still
you're right.
looks pretty good, though. Even if you don't like green, they look pretty good, so why mess with that?
Grievance. How about this one? Major faux pas. Grievance. Having your lights on during Halloween and not coming to the door. Kids were sad.
Oh.
That's how kids decide whether to knock on your door or not.
At least do the thing we talked about yesterday, put the bowl out.
Bowl of candy, man. Bowl of candy. Yeah. Put it out there.
That's what we did. So while we were making dinner and eating dinner, we just put the bowl out, had the lights on, and then when the candy was gone, we turned the lights off.
I tell you what, man, I was very impressed with the neighborhood we ended up trick-or-treating in last night, kind of in the Foothill area, because people were home, people had the lights on, people had the decorations out, people were answering the door, and there were a lot of people who clearly had bought too much Halloween candy, and they were like, take 4, take 3. And when you're 5 years old to whatever the appropriate termination age of trick-or-treating is, like 12 years old, I don't know. When someone's like, not only can you have free candy, you can have multiple free candies. That's amazing.
It
was great. It was great. We also, in our group, we were lucky enough to experience the very first trick-or-treating moment for these 2 little girls that are twins that are from a foreign country. This was the first time that they had ever trick-or-treated. Their family just recently relocated here to the United States. They'd never trick-or-treated before. And
that's amazing.
Yeah.
What a story that is.
They were dressed as twin Elsas. And the mom was just like, as they're going up to the first door, she's got her phone out. She's all excited. And she's like, this is their first time they've trick-or-treated. I was like, oh, that's amazing.
That's so cool.
It's great.
How cool was it, by the way, we had Mongolian Mike in studio, the Shark, apparently another one of his nicknames.
Yeah.
How cool was it when you asked him if they have Halloween in Mongolia? He's like, yeah, we trick-or-treat, we dress up, we do the whole thing. I didn't know that many other countries did the Halloween thing the way we do it.
I very desperately want to go see what Mongolian trick-or-treating looks like.
Also, Shark's a great nickname. So we found out why he's called Shark. His dad. Apparently, his dad's name may be the translation of his name or whatever. His dad's name is Shark, so he's Shark. So Monday, by the way, is when that season starts. You can see Shark on the court. But I was fascinated to hear, because I was not expecting him to say, yeah, we do the trick or treating. We dress up in costumes in Mongolia too. I honestly thought it was mainly a North America thing.
All right, there's your airing of grievances. Keep them coming in if you like. At Real OC Sports, always a good place to air it out as you head into the weekend. And we hope have a wonderful bye weekend for BYU and for Utah football. Sean O'Connell Show wrapping things up. Is Spence in the building or is he on remote today?
He's in the building today. I've got to poke my head out and see if he's here.
All right, we'll track down Spence Checketts for some crosstalk. It's ESPN 700. versus Texas Tech. Tell me where Texas Tech ranks in scoring offense in the Big 12 Conference, and I will give you jersey mics and tickets to that hockey game. 877-353-0700. Sean O'Connell Show wrapping it up on a Friday. That means the drive with Spence Checketts is next. Spence Checketts in studio. How are you, sir?
I covered that shirt. That's a good-looking flannel.
Oh, thank you.
I'm a big fan this time of year. Try to do the spring cleaning, keep it aside. Now it's cold. Get out the shirts. I'm a big fan of a good flannel. That's a good-looking flannel.
That's nice of you to say.
I hope all 3 people on our YouTube channel can see the flannel and enjoy it. You got 7? Well, you're doubling my YouTube audience, and I'll tell you that much.
I don't even know if we have 7 today. I just threw that number out there.
I think at one point when I solicited viewers, we did get to double digits.
There you go.
I think it was 11. It's a good day.
See?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
By the way, I think Iowa State's in a little bit of trouble against Texas Tech.
You do?
Yeah, I was, and this caught me off guard. Iowa State's not great against the run. We just kind of blanket them as a great defensive team. And what I was reading, you would know better than I would, is Texas Tech on the ground, pretty proficient. This kind of feels a little bit UCF, Iowa State-ish. Iowa State won that game, but they had to get lucky. I'm not saying it's an outright upset. I think that game's going to be close.
Well, we're going to see how things kind of take shape here at the top of the Big 12 Conference in these next few weeks, because Iowa State's got a couple tough matches left. Obviously, BYU, they've got a pretty favorable schedule moving forward if they can get past the Utes. And, Colorado is there hanging around.
Yeah.
Kansas State is as well.
Yeah.
So there's still, we talked about this a little bit today, there's really still 6 teams that are within striking distance of that conference championship game, and that means within striking distance of a playoff appearance.
Well, and every weekend, because, and I'll certainly speak for myself too, sometimes you can put blinders on to just focus on the local stuff, the Big 12 stuff, as we talked about with baseball. When you do this job, you allocate energy off mic to what you need to talk about when you're actually on the mic. So at times it's just Big 12, it's Utah, it's BYU. There's been chaos all around college football every single weekend, and there could continue to be, especially in this conference. Now, you credit BYU and Iowa State for separating themselves, but one of the things I like about Kalani's weekly presser is it's not about getting ahead. It's not about staying behind. It's stay humble and stay hungry. We've got to make one more statement this week, and that's all. Because that's how you've got to think about it, because there's just been so many crazy results every single weekend, and I anticipate it'll be the same this weekend, so we'll see.
What's coming up on the drive?
A little bit of everything. We're very guest-heavy. We have 2 college football guests, 2 jazz guests. We also will do a little RSL as they're in preparation for their playoff match tomorrow. But, yeah, 4 hours, a little bit of everything locally, jazz, RSL, college football. We'll do a little pro football. As the Jets may have saved their season last night. I know. I don't believe it. I'm just, I'm trying to wax positive.
Where do you stand on the blackout uniforms?
I was going to ask about that.
A fan.
Yeah.
A fan of them.
Man of poor taste.
Because
the Jets blackout uniforms are
filed a grievance against them last segment.
For the Jets?
I have
the Jets blackout.
I have a long-standing policy where if black is not in any part of your color scheme, it should never be part of your uniform.
All right, I'm wearing all black today.
Well, that's part of your color scheme.
It's my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm mysterious.
You're Johnny Cash.
The Drive logo has black all over it.
As it should. Now, essentially, here's why I like the Jets black uniforms. I don't love green anything. I don't have green shirts. I don't love a green uniform.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat.
I do enjoy a little jazz green throwback, like Ricky Green style, 1984. I like when they bring those back. Are the yellow jerseys still around for the Jazz, or did they kill those?
I think they killed the yellow jerseys.
Okay.
Purple is back. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, to Lowry's.
That was the best day, dude.
To Lowry's discontent. Did you heard that's his favorite?
I did hear that.
The jerseys, the highlighter yellow.
He's lying, or else Finnish people like yellow in a way that we don't. But that day, I'll never forget that day when they released the mock-up of the yellow and black jerseys. They got killed.
Yeah.
And then the PR spin later that afternoon was like, oh, yeah, purple's back. We better release one more purple jersey because everyone hates our new mock-ups.
You guys seen those great black and yellow shirts that the lettering says purple is back?
Oh, no, I need to get me one of those.
We should get one of those.
Yeah, for sure.
That's phenomenal. All right, well, everyone enjoy your weekend. Thanks for listening today. Stay tuned for The Drive with Spence Checketts, and the correct answer on the trivia was number one. Number one in the conference, Texas Tech. Number one scoring offense in the conference as they take on Iowa State this weekend. Be well, everybody. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700.